Woohoo!
Hello!
Oh, golly. Oodalolly.
The rain sounds are loud in my ear holes.
Good thing they're
Is
loud
it rain
there and
sounds
not
from
in
my
any of your other
place?
orifices.
We also had rain sounds today. Yeah, okay, it's just not ducking. That's why. Got a duck. Do you guys remember to duck today?
I did dodge and dip, dive even. No ducks.
Like Black Ops 1? Like,
Nah, like
Yeah.
dodgeball. Dodge.
oh,
dip,
there you go.
Dip, dive and dodge. Sorry.
Man, I really ruined that joke for you. That really. Yes, the rain sounds are loud in my ear holes. Thank you, Travis. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shadows Over Driftchapel. My name is Logan. Never say dice on the internet, and these are. I don't know a good way to introduce you guys yet because I feel like Dimension 20 really cornered the market on the good intro of the say hi. And then, yeah, that's the best
Hi,
one.
intrepid heroes.
Yeah.
Oh, is that copyrighted? Is
I
that
don't
trademark?
think
Should
it
we
is,
not?
but you know, I can't say
It's
it.
okay as long as we're not like copying Disney or something. We'll run.
A whole new
This is
stream,
This is
new
Shadows Over
session
Driftchapel.
Bam.
Man, if I had expert video editing skills, like I would
Draw a
definitely
quick
make it.
fish person on the screen.
It just turns into like a bunch of madness. Our pupils disappear,
God.
and like
Ugh.
just in like a low like subwoofer warbling in the background. Anyway, man, I wish we had a budget. Wish we had any budget. But is our Shadows Over Driftchapel campaign might get a little confusing. I'm considering sort of not post-production, changing the name, quote unquote, of the campaign, just so that way we can differentiate it from Shadows Over Driftchapel, the actual supplement and the actual product.
Yeah.
Sure.
So may look into that in the future, but for now it's just Shadows Over Driftchapel. I really should have thought of renaming it when you guys left, and that would have been the best time to rename it. But you know, hindsight is whatever. For
The
2069.
shadows were still over Driftchapel.
Yeah, they never left.
If anything, they've gotten
We
worse.
just did.
They got worse. The shadows were like near Driftchapel for a bit. Now they're over. But we took a week off because I was out of town doing some family stuff. So we're getting back into it. Session 15. And I don't know if people at home, if you watch our Sharn Knights campaign, there was a good chunk of time where we were pulling out like pretty regular 3 to 4, sometimes 5-hour sessions. And then all of my adult friends started saying, I have to get up for work in the morning. Logan, this is going on for way too long. And then we started this campaign, and Bradley was like, I can't play until 9 o'clock. And so we were playing very late for a while. So it kind of started getting into this mindset of like, okay, shorter sessions. So to put it in perspective, we'll assume with 3 hours max, generally, for our sessions. So that's what, 45 hours of playtime minus breaks. So we'll say 40 hours between start time, breaks in between, whatever else. We've done a lot in those 15 sessions.
We have.
Only, 2.5 hours each. We've done a lot.
I died.
You died.
Yeah.
Not Bradley.
Oh, well, I mean, we're doing pretty good if we got him back.
Yeah. It was the Bog Witches. I'm not actually Bradley.
And also,
Oh, no.
and also in those 15 sessions, those 40 hours, we started at one person in every time zone. And then we shrunk down to 3 people in the same time zone and 1 person out to now into 3 times. We have done so much moving in the game and
Yes.
out of game. Alright.
It's been time.
It has been a time. It's so weird to think about. Like, we just finished up Sharn Knights, and I'm like, yeah, we started streaming like last July or August or whatever, and I'm like, man, So much has happened in a year. We started streaming this in like December.
I thought
I
we
think we did like
waited
a
till the beginning
session
of the
0
year.
in December, and then we started like
After the
officially
new
doing
year,
them.
yeah. Like, man.
And like the first session and the second session had like a month gap
Yeah.
because of my move or something. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's almost been
Time.
a year.
Time. Well, anyway, not to get all existential about it. All the normal announcements. There's going to be a free for everyone post on my Patreon tomorrow. You may have seen someone posted from this week. I've gotten kind of in a light source kick. I made a lantern earlier this week.
I love the fucking
as someone who's
torch.
playing a human,
I
I
Yes.
like light sources.
Exactly.
Same, actually.
And the feat that I made this week, I was actually very proud of it.
I like it.
It's essentially a feat that helps you to weaponize torches in D&D 5e, to the point where it kind of, I was torn on whether to make it a feat or a fighting style, and I figured as a fighting style it wouldn't last very long. But as a feat, it sort of makes it a fighting style plus a little bit of extra. So essentially you can either, you're a fire like spinner kind of. So you have a torch that you can weaponize and you deal extra damage and stuff. Very fun.
That's cool.
And then tomorrow there's going to be a similar sort of light source / fire themed thing for everyone. So check it out on my Patreon. DM's Guild. It's almost Halloween. I definitely should have talked about my adventure way sooner, but I kind of don't have a good concept of time. And I think that might be why I got a little time kick earlier. I have a sort of spooky Halloween one-shot. Actually, Daniel is not multi-classed. He's just sort of a fun version of Rogue. He's
Also not really human.
not really human.
Human.
Hugh.
Okay.
Asterisk. I have an adventure on the DM's Guild called The Songs and Spirits Inn. It's sort of a spooky adventure. It's on sale now because there's a Halloween sale for only $2.10 plus maybe some tax. It's essentially a fun sort of single locale adventure that you can drop into any campaign as long as it has bars and an inn. And it's all about supernatural paranormal stuff. Bradley may have played in one of the test plays for it. Yeah, and Drew.
Fun time.
We played it with John, didn't we?
Actually, this is a
Or
fun
like
little...
some weird version of it.
That was the one shot we played whenever we were getting the gang back together, and we put together our old D&D group like 3 years ago, and we played that as a one shot. And I was like, yeah, I'll write that into an official thing one day,
Nice.
and it's official.
That's
So this,
awesome.
yeah, it's
Guess
very
who's gonna
fun.
go there.
So it's a nice, fun little spooky thing, and it's very flexible. There's all varieties of spooky paranormal happenings you can drop in there. So I definitely go give that a check out on the DM's Guild. Songs and Spirits Inn. Bam. Next ad. Shard Knights. The campaign has concluded. This past week we took a week off and did a nice, fun Call of Cthulhu one-shot. It was spooky. Not nearly as spooky as you expect. Unless you're lactose intolerant, then it's real spooky. But VOD will be up of that soon, plus some fun clips from it, because it was less Call of Cthulhu and more of Cthulhu's 5 minutes on stage up at open mic night doing some stand-up comedy. But this Monday, instead of Shard Nights, we're going to be doing sort of a live stream of Shard Nights After Dark, where we're going to answer everyone's burning questions, mostly my players' burning questions about the campaign, and then you can also ask them about their characters and whatever things that they have experienced and went through. So it's going to be lots of fun. And also Monday is Xavier's birthday, so we'll do a little celebratory thing for him. Coffee and Cozy Grove streams Tuesdays and Thursdays in the middle of the day when everyone's at work, so it's just you and me sitting and having some coffee and fishing and catching bugs and petting my pet birds. I think besides that, I think that's good. My white balance gets really off when I turn my head and then look back. I look like very pale and ghostly. So what if I turn that off? Is that better? It's not really much better. I don't know.
It's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah.
So that way, whenever I want
Driftchapel.
whenever I want to roleplay a cultist, I can turn away, describe how pale they are, and then look at you, and I'm really pale and washed out. But besides that, I think that's really it. Follow me on social media and all that fun stuff. I'm gonna be posting some fun clips from past streams on YouTube and on social media. I'm learning very basic novice video editing, so it's gonna be really high quality clips. The first one that I tested out and then it made myself laugh, so I was like, that's good enough. It's a clip, and the only thing I'm going to say is there's a PNG of Sheldon Cooper that flashes on screen. So it's going to be
All
good.
right. Buzzinga.
Yep.
Oh no.
The worst Eldritch horror.
Sheldon Cooper.
My mind melts.
Yes, video editing, Travis, video editing. And the first thing I'm starting with is, it's going to be sort of my pet project for the weekend, is to put together a clip compilation of Char Knight's clips to play during our breaks for the Monday night stream, because you guys have said some stupid shit throughout the stream that's been clipped. One of them being Bazinga, so that's where we're going with that. But instead of starting with a recap, we're on session 15. And it's been a while since we've fully done this. We have a new character in our midst. What we'll do is first, before recap, is sort of reintroduce your characters for any new people that might join. Plus, it's been like a month since we've played, so sort of to get back into the vibe of everything. We may have done this last time, but we'll do it once more. So we'll start with the person down to my bottom here. Daniel, if you will give a description of Amina, both appearance and also just what you want people to know about her.
Sure. So Amina Saeed is a wonderful little sorceress wizard. Oh wait, I guess I can't say sorceress. That's actually technically something different. She's a wizard. And she's interesting in that because of her backstory, she was actually the very first woman to be admitted into the Ordisterium, order that was previously all male dominated, which helped pave the way for many other women and girls to enter the craft of wizardry. But because of the events in the Gloam, she stepped away from magic for a little bit. She got abducted. This is all pre our campaign. She got abducted by cultists and stepped away from magic for a little bit. Took up the crossbow, and her whole shtick is that she also was cursed by the bog witches. Her and all of her sisters, with different aspects of certain. Two of them are animals. One of them is a rose. Amina was cursed / blessed with the gift of the spider, and so she is also a shifter, where she can take on certain arachnid qualities, such as like really fast climbing, and hopefully some other things that I can elaborate on later in this session, and we can expand on it. And of course, her sister, who we've met, Farah, was the one blessed / cursed with the gift of the rose. And of course, her appearance is quite different. Amina, in short, is human, but her face is starting to show signs of her resisting everything, the curse that she has, and so one of her eyes is starting to split into like multi irises or whatever the thing is that spiders have multiples of in their eye. And her hair is starting to get spindly, and she has what is kind of like in between fangs and teeth. But yeah, and she normally wears a headscarf to cover that up, but she might be in for a little fashion show here later. That might change that up a little bit. So that's more or less her. Oh, and she also, is loves sneaking around and going pew pew with a crossbow. I don't know. I'm done. That's it.
I love it. So all that stuff happening pre-campaign. Could you remind everyone about how old Amina is now?
Oh yes, Amina would be definitely in her early 50s by now.
Nice. And as a note to sort of respond to what Travis mentioned earlier about people being multi-classed, so something we worked out with Daniel, and of course, so this is the second time this has happened with a player of mine, where it's sort of like one of their first times playing D&D, and I'm like, yeah, spellcasters are kind of challenging. Half casters can get a little bit confusing because your magic is usually really particular, so it's usually almost an added challenge. And then like martial people, so there's all these different classes, and Daniel and another player of mine were like, that one, and chose like the hardest subclass, which is Arcane Trickster, because there's kind of some niche things for that. Yeah, you really did forget. I'm gonna need to do an entire video on my YouTube channel just of Daniel just talking about Amina. So what I worked out with Daniel to sort of fit what he was going for in his vision of Amina, and also fitting into some of the lore of the world, we took the Arcane Trickster, shoved it into the mold of the Ordisterium, which is much more like alchemy and study-based magic. But then also filled in the gaps with what Daniel was kind of foreseeing as sort of the kind of skulky dungeon delver explorative rogue. So we essentially took Arcane Trickster, forgot the Trickster part of it, changed the schools of magic that Arcane Trickster limits you to I believe it was Divination and Conjuration, and then changed it to an Ordist rogue because went to the Ordisterium. So we kind of did all this mishing and mashing to make it, a better version of the Arcane Trickster.
One of the beautiful things about 5e is that you can do that, and it doesn't break it.
Doesn't break anything. Yep. And what I did for my other Arcane Trickster character is he had this class clown vision of his Arcane Trickster, and I was like, yeah, so here's all the Arcane Trickster stuff, and here's the Bard spell list instead.
Ooh.
And it was fine. It has not changed anything. Like,
That's perfect.
Nice. I love that.
it makes more sense than Wizard. That's a Bard.
So much more.
Yeah,
For an Arcane
honestly, that's a
Trickster?
good choice.
Anyway, enough about that. We'll save the new one for last. Save the new kid. So Drew, if you want to take the reins and describe Sludig and whatever you want the people to know.
Okay. So, Sludig Bjornhart is not a monstrously large man, but an enormous man. About 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds easily, just of well-honed muscle, but a solid layer of fat.
Oh, I was gonna say like
The
3%
beard.
body fat. Like,
No, he's not like the bodybuilder type ripped. He's like
Some of the
the
model.
the what?
Like, sorry, inside joke with Luke.
Oh. He's kind of like the strong man, like Eddie Hall, sort of ripped dude. Got the power belly from lifting a half ton. Anyway, Sludig, because of his size, kind of grew up very clumsy and took some time to grow into himself. because of this, he was run out of his village for freak accident after freak accident. There, out in the wilds of the Gloam lands, he definitely grew into a barbaric sort of lifestyle, living only through animalistic kind of ways of life. About 20 or so years out in the Gloam, he is wandering around, finds his wife, or future wife, Ilya. A little extra time later, after some daring grappling to a Gloam beast and some daring grappling to his wife, Sludig was out on a pilgrimage to kind of relive some of the more dangerous and daring aspects of his life, and was returning when he found the burnt ruins of his village. There he found the remains of a cultist who he managed, not the remains, I'm sorry. He found the dying body of a cultist we managed to question. From then he found that his wife, Ilya, was lost to him, whether dead or kidnapped, he did not know. Fast forward, we're in the bog. Sludig is stabbed through the heart, face first, as he sees a cross from the bog, which is his love brought back to life to live hell in her eyes, used as a revenge tool against the cult. Sludig is going through a lot these days, and thus has gone away from his monk lifestyle back towards some of his barbaric nature. He got a little bit of a cathartic release from a brutal moment with a cultist last session. It's rough, but we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, that was a little scary. That was a little
It
scary.
was
It's like
I mean,
foreboding.
wife and
just gotta-
D&D.
you a wife in D&D, is that allowed? Never mind, kidnap. Wait, alive? Nah, dead, then alive. Peace-loving lady. Brought back to be an avenger for the freaking bog witches. Who is actually to blame for her suffering? The world may never know.
Man, I didn't like in the Shadows of Driftchapel supplement. The bog witches aren't like they're mentioned, they're talked about, but they aren't, of course, like thoroughly described as much like the town and the cult and things like that. But I'm a little proud of what an ambiguous villain they became. Like, ooh, I did not expect it. But it was just one of those things where it's like every like decision I had to visualize, I sort of had to do like dance to either side of it, or just change the perspective of it to be a good thing, just every single time. And man, it worked. Because even to the point where like you were gonna leave them, and I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna like go out with a bang and murder all these witches, or if they're I don't know what the fuck these guys are gonna do.
Thought crossed the mind.
I know. You settled with larceny and just stealing a bunch of stuff.
Everything of
About
value this
burglary.
lady owns, and then we're gonna leave.
And then a book
Lose
full of the
Kamin
ocean.
on the way.
Yep. So for people who have not been able to keep up or check out VODs, also I've been bad about posting VODs, or missed a few weeks ago, unlucky session number 13. Bradley's original character Kamin did not survive the trek into the canals beneath this entire region that the cult uses these waterways to travel everywhere. But to our other two brave heroes, they saved Kamin's body, preventing it from potentially being used against them for nefarious purposes, just as though what's-her-face's was. The lady from Aveline.
I was right.
I heard that. I was like, that's it. As Aveline's was, burying Kamin in the outside of the Erwile bog near a church where he would have wanted it.
Sure.
Arriving back in Driftchapel, this might be a good time to do a recap then, now that I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Arriving back in Driftchapel, these final two heroes, to find it not as they left it. The first time they arrived, it was quiet, maybe a few lamps here and there within the homes, but not many. And a few people maybe even walking the streets, going to the Rivermouth Inn for a drink, going to whatever homes, going down to the docks for a little bit of late night work, whatever it may have been. But this time there was no one. It was eerily quiet. And even as they got to the Rivermouth Inn where they had stayed previously, no more people started to rear their heads. Amina quickly made a turn to the Ordist's shop, which was still churning. The chimney was putting out some smoke, and you could still smell some of the herbs coming from outside, or coming from inside. But Sludig made his way into town to sort of see what the deal was, trying to locate anyone. And when he made it to the Rivermouth Inn, actually, Sludig didn't make that choice at first. He heard a gunshot on the far side of town that made the choice for him. Sludig arrived at the Rivermouth Inn, where he found the bleeding body of a cultist and a cultist running away. So Sludig did what he does best and ran at utmost speed and promptly got mad and got scary on this cultist, getting whatever information, whatever stuff you get. And it's already a bad sign that cultists are in the open. So eventually, Sludig returned to the inn to find his old friend Dieter, the bleeding cultist, and Dieter speaking to a similarly older, weathered man strapped with firearms, having a drink at the bar. So Bradley, if you want to describe your character and introduce him.
Yeah. So my character's name is Kieran Hogue. Kieran is a older human gentleman, pale skin, probably early to mid 50s, if not late 50s. He's not quite sure. No one really is. Tall and thin, probably standing around 6'1", 6'2", but a slender build. Simple, just a kind of swept back black hair with, dots of some white poking out, some salt and pepper going on, as well as some decently thick, like, sideburns almost down into mutton chops, but not quite yet, and a nice little mustache that goes across. Just very obviously weathered older man. So lots of wrinkles across the eyes, wrinkles in the face. He's seen a lot of shit. This face is a little more harrowed than most. On the rest of his body, he's got a large kind of just like tan colored, like oiled canvas style coat, like overcoat that he's got over most of his other belongings. He's just wearing simple red colored vest underneath with a white button up, and the top is a little brooch with a little emerald kind of encrusted into it. Simple black trousers and some traveling boots. What's more interesting about is on either hip are two flintlock pistols. One of them a bit more intricate and delicate in design, the other a little more mundane, as well as a large musket strapped to his back, similarly kind of more mechanically complex than one would assume most muskets around would be. Yeah, that's Kieran. He also emblazoned across the lapel of this coat he wears. You do see just kind of on a patch there is the symbol of the Dawn Hammers, which are a mostly gone, kind of still around but not really group, just a military group that existed in different parts of the world. And Kieran has come to Driftchapel for his own reasons, which have yet to be discovered.
Amazing. So this is where Sludig and Kieran met. Sludig and Dieter go back a ways in the war, the Black Crusades. Not on the
I
nicest
assume you
of
may.
terms.
I assume you
Kieran
mean
and Dieter.
Kieran and Dieter.
I thought
Not
that's what I
Sludig?
said.
You
I
said
said
Sludig.
I said that's where they met Sludig, and then I may have very quickly said Dieter and Kieran go back a ways, and may have just gotten mumbled out of existence. So Kieran and Dieter go back many, many years to the Black Crusades. Of course, as it has become known, Dieter is a bit of a
Draft dodger.
a little bit of a coward, a little bit of a deserter. And of course, thinking that you had perished in the war, didn't really think too much of it until you showed up, and now he is deeply ashamed and has kind of, you can see that he's been reduced a little bit in his stature in this town as the local veteran and crusader. But the both of them, Kieran and Dieter, went out to meet Sludig, who was having a scary confrontation with the cultists. You three sort of met, sort of understood that allies are hard to come by, and walked, the three of you, back to the Ordist shop where Agnes Wood works. One of the seemingly many women that followed in Amina's footsteps in the Ordisterium and gained all varieties of magical and non-magical training, where now she runs a potion shop, but also sort of in secret sent to do research on the town and whatever is happening here with the cultists. But, of course, when faced with an idol, a trailblazer, she sort of crafted an under-the-table deal to sort of help Amina and you all without keeping it on the books, so that way she doesn't get in trouble. But now that the town is quickly unraveling and falling apart, she's sort of doing what she can to preserve her own life and save people in the town. So, the three of you return to Agnes's small shop on the very far northern edge of town, and I'm actually going to try a little switcheroo here. Now there's a map on the stream. Yes, so Agnes's shop is just at the very edge of town, on the north side. So, you return, you meet with her, and I believe that's where we left off. If it wasn't where we left off, that's where we left off now. So you all return. For the sake of brevity, since Kieran just sort of gave the script, or Bradley gave a description of Kieran, we won't worry about sort of doing a super nitty-gritty role-playing introduction. But Kieran and Amina sort of get acquainted and sort of just, you go around for about 10 minutes shaking hands and saying names and getting familiar with who all is there. So it's you three, Dieter, and Agnes Wood in this very small shop that smells of incense, all of the bubbling concoctions everywhere and on the shelves, the drawers and little compartments of ingredients, books lining everywhere on top, everything from magical history to recipes for potions. Once you all sort of get acquainted with one another, Agnes immediately apologizes, and you know what? Let's really get spicy in here, and I'm going to flip this layout one more time to show some artwork of Agnes and Dieter that will rotate back and forth for everyone's pleasure.
Lovely.
You can check out the artwork in this Shadows Over Driftchapel supplement. The artist's name, I believe, is Alexander Caustic, who you can probably find on social media. Very good artwork. He did a lot of the artwork for this book, and it's truly some of my favorites. All very inky and dark and gritty. It's very cool. So Agnes Wood is this robed woman with all varieties of sort of icons of the Ordisterium. Sort of, it sounds almost a little demeaning to say, like sort of Girl Scout badges, but it's kind of what it is. There are all these medals and brooches signifying her proficiencies in the various alchemical and arcane arts. That doesn't necessarily mean that she can actually cast spells and do magic, but she just has a very in-depth understanding of it and can help with that kind of thing. but she is a proficient alchemist. But she has the veil of that many Ordists wear over her face, and carries with her this beautiful ornate staff, also signature to her position in the Ordisterium. And then, of course, all varieties of pouches of random ingredients that she's using and that she keeps on hand. Dieter, on the other hand, is a little less put together. He probably more resembles Amina and Sludig after their, 2 weeks or 1 week in the swamp, and then a night or so underwater or in the canals and on a boat underground, and then walking through the swamp again. Dieter's a little rough and tumble, kind of a stained cloak that, Kieran, you would definitely know as something that he's had since he was in the war. Like, he has not upgraded his stuff at all. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy. So, what'd you say?
I said I'm about to break it.
It's broken.
Love it.
So all sorts of cloaks, traveling gear as well. He has a rifle that he keeps on his back, a club, a lantern, backpack full of whatever he needs to travel. To most people, it's like, yep, he's a traveler. That's travel gear. Probably to Kieran, it's like, well, yep, he's going to make an escape. That's why he's keeping it on hand. But something signature to Dieter is on his cloak, and that he still wears, and an amulet around his neck. He bears the brooch and an amulet of the Dawnhammers and Aliana, an old god from before the Gloam, essentially. As you finish up your meeting and greeting, Agnes Wood kind of looks at this crowd standing in her small shop. She says, I've heard about the inn getting kind of destroyed a little bit. And Kieran and Sludig, you both kind of saw that a little bit. A hole burst through the side, Rosanna missing. She's not at the front counter. And Agnes says, if you all have sleeping bags, sleeping rolls, you're more than welcome to sleep on the floor in the main room. Don't really have too much lodging available for all of you, but if you're more than welcome to stay here if you wish. A little cramped.
There are no other places of lodging within the town?
If there are at this point, I'm not sure if they're very safe.
Well, this is far better than sleeping out on the streets, especially the way they are these days.
Agreed.
So I appreciate it. But,
Of course.
Dieter, what have you heard about Rosanna? Why is she missing?
Not sure. And you see that Dieter's standing a little more upright than usual, Amina and Sludig. He's standing up, kind of has his hands clasped in front of him a little bit, trying to stand a little shoulders wide. And he's like 5'8", 5'9". He's not huge. And so he's standing next to Kieran and kind of like, when I arrived back in Driftchapel, found that the inn was a bit abandoned. A couple folks gambling and drinking, but no Rosanna. I searched for her. Eventually I got someone to speak to me. Apparently, that thing that you mentioned, Sludig, the metal man.
The big set of armor. Not armor, that tank thing. The
Came into
diving suit.
town and
Yes.
more regularly at least, and started taking more people from the town and took her, seems. Could be lying, but... And then turns to you, Kieran. There crazy things happen in this town, and we think that these cultists are summoning all sorts of evil magic. And I mean, Sludig can more vouch for it, but this old deep sea suit, this diving suit that some of the more island cities use for collecting refuse from the bottom of the ocean and all that stuff, it's come alive, animated.
It is strange. It is filled with what I would call the Gloam,
Oh.
if anything else. But I remember when I fought it by myself, it damaged me, and I was worried for my life, and I ended up having to flee. It's not a creature I would recommend any of us go and take on by our own.
Seems like
So-
it's been coming into town, taking folks.
So you saw this creature. It harmed you. It interacted with you. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Uh, I have the scars to show for it here. It swings this big hook thing. It doesn't exactly feel very good when it pierces your flesh.
So this isn't some kind of shared psychosis, then. Okay.
Ludic
So
thinks on the word psychosis for a second.
Dieter does too. And
So
I
there's
imagine
I think it's anything like that.
Agnes probably thinks for a moment. She's like, I mean, could it be? Like, very well. I mean, would we know if it were? I don't know.
I did have
look at your
those
drinking water.
nightmares. Oh, you don't want to check that.
So, this large creature is coming from the water and taking people out to sea? And the creepy barnacle-covered folk we saw before are the ones bringing this creature?
Is there no one organized to deal with this here?
Oh no. The most form of justice that Driftchapel has is the sailors down at the dock. That's about it. No real law enforcement, especially now.
Who leads this town? Who makes the town's decisions?
Some fat, greasy guy.
Does this fat, rotund, greased gentleman have a name?
Yeah, it's he's a mayor. Again, I don't know who. I don't think they voted. His name is Horace Mason, Mayor Mason. He's about the only fella in town that wears rings and necklaces, so I guess that makes him more inclined to lead than anybody.
If I recall our last interaction with this particular gentleman, I found it particularly strange that he was so calm and collected compared to the townsfolk.
And Sludy, he kind of took a liking to you, right?
That was what I was thinking. It was strange because if I remember correctly, most of that time I was over there breaking people's arms, arm wrestling. One would think he wouldn't like that, a strange man breaking his townspeople. But Amina, you're right. He does seem strangely put together compared to everybody else.
Strong stranger he could sign to his pay bill and protect his back, perhaps.
Fair enough.
Perhaps we should have a conversation with this Mr. Mason, figure out why nothing is getting done in this town.
I know a few people down by the docks who, with a little persuasion, might be able to put together a couple patrols. Maybe not in a large area, but at least establish a small area that might be a little bit safer for people to flee to.
It's a good idea. So assuming there's no standing town guard or constables, any... That's all long gone by now, right?
Yeah.
Vigilante justice it is. Right. Do we have any other allies within the space? I see 5 of us in this room who seem relatively sane. Anyone else we can call upon?
Agnes and Dieter both think for a moment. They start rattling off a bunch of names, and it's kind of a back and forth of like, oh, what about them? And it's like, no, they had gills last time they came in. What about them? Oh no, they had barnacles coming out of their mouth.
Touch of the gout. I'm sorry, you can't believe me.
But one of the people that Dieter mentions, and they kind of agree on, is a lamplighter, because something that you saw on your way in the first time, so you came in around sunset, is that there are these lamp posts throughout town of all these oil lamps that are lit, lighting all the roads. And they say that there is someone who is still lighting the lamps. And her name is Portia Brown. And Slewdig, you would recognize the Brown name because I believe you met her father. Let me double check. Got some notes floating around here somewhere.
That is certainly amongst the paper notes that have
Yeah,
been lost.
it's also amid my paper notes. Yes, Balthazar Brown. He was this.
How did I forget Balthazar?
Yeah, right, same though. Yeah, he was this bald, older man who sort of was an audience member at your fight club on the boat. But apparently, Portia, his daughter, is still keeping up her duties as a lamplighter of the town, and basically the only person. And from what they could tell, that she is still trustworthy and sane. The other person that Dieter mentions that you see that Agnes kind of about is the town taxidermist, Lavinia King. Dieter says, like, she sewed up a few of my stab wounds from the bar fights, and, she's good in my book. But you can see that Agnes, she gets strange vibes from Lavinia. She's as odd. Not necessarily supernatural odd, just that she's a taxidermist odd. But from what they can both agree on, she doesn't seem to have any affiliation with nefarious peoples and sources. But besides that, they mostly tick off a good most of the population of Driftchapel is either being active cult people that are either being strong-armed or manipulated by the cult and are not trustworthy, or people that are trying to survive and are sort of just manic now.
Right. So we should set out and contact these individuals. I'm assuming Miss Brown would be most easily located in the evenings when she's lighting these lamps, yes?
Yep.
And the taxidermist, where in town is that?
Her shop is quite literally on the opposite side of town, like south of you, across all the waterways, at the very far end of town.
Right. Well, I suppose we'll take some time, gather some allies and information, unless anyone else has any more information they've neglected to share.
Not
Right.
on my end.
Perfect. Before we depart anywhere, madam, could I possibly inquire upon purchasing some goods? It's been quite a journey, and I'm apparently am in need of some things to aid defending myself and a few others.
Says, of course, says, and it looks like Miss Saeed and Sludik here have also had their long journeys, so I'll get you whatever you need, and why don't you all get washed up from the road and make a lunch, take a little breather, and she looks up at Dieter and says, "Dieter, will you give me a hand with food?" And he nods his head. And so a little bit of time.
That sandwich. Not if Dieter touches it.
He touches some meat. He doesn't like the residue it leaves on his hand. He spits in his hand and wipes it on his shirt and grabs it.
I
Purifies
got all
his
your
drink.
4 basic food groups: beans, bacon, whiskey, and lard.
Oh man.
Oh, early 2000 animation for the win. Yes.
So, the rest of the morning passes. Lunchtime hits. Light drizzle comes in as well, a bit of an overcast. So you're sitting, much like it was today here in Virginia. A little bit gray, a little bit of rain outside. You just have a nice warm lunch. Amina and Sludig, you kind of take a chance to, with hot water, wash off a little bit, fully change your clothes, like kind of hit a little reset. Daniel, it's up to you. Do you want to take some time here to talk about what kind of clothes Amina puts on, and what kind of changes she might make, or is that going to be a later thing?
We'll talk about that here in a minute.
Okay. And while you all like sort of eat lunch, Bradley, what kind of stuff are you wanting to purchase from Resident Alchemist?
First thing, some healers kits. Let's say at least 2, if not more.
She could part with 2, but she also says that the taxidermist is sort of this pseudo doctor in town.
Oh, great.
So Agnes deals with like more of the potions and poultices and tonics, whereas the taxidermist is a lot of the bandaging and sewing of wounds. So you can get more of those supplies, or at least more of them with the taxidermist. But she can part with 2 healer's kits, book price. I don't know what that is, 5.
I don't either. I was hoping you did.
I'll whip it up. But anything else besides healer's kits?
Yes. Now, this question may be a bit more niche, but nonetheless, just something I require. You wouldn't happen to have any smoke powder or gunpowder of any kind? It's 5 gold apiece. I looked it
5
up.
gold piece. Yeah.
She's
God, and they're 3 pounds? Sorry.
lots of stuff.
Thick.
And she does have that kind of stuff on hand. Not as much as, someone who actually sells guns and ammo, but enough for whatever kind of crafting she needs. How much are you wanting? Enough?
Well, that's a good question, because something else we probably should have talked about beforehand is how much ammo I have.
We will assume
Enough.
enough. Because for the most part, like in normal D&D, when most creatures are using arrows and crossbows, here it's more pistols or melee weapons. So at the very least, you're able to reclaim enough ammunition off of people that unfired ammunition. But we'll say that if you purchase like ammunition, you purchase equivalent of gunpowder, necessary gunpowder. And so for 10 shots of like your rifle or pistol or whatever it might be, 10 shots total is 1 gold piece for all the necessary supplies.
Whew, fantastic. In that case, for the second question, how much does she have? I'm not trying to maybe
We'll
I am
say
trying to
5
figure out.
gold pieces worth.
I buy 5 gold pieces worth.
Okay, so you essentially get 50 standard shots of pistol, rifle, etc.
Cool. That was all the specific stuff that I think she would have.
Okay. So, lunch passes, stuff acquired, and for my own little bit of note-taking here, Daniel,
Yes.
last time you came in with sort of a list of like, I want this, I want this, I want this. What things are you eventually looking to make with her? And she will sort of just setting the recipes aside, getting that stuff sanctioned away.
Okay, this is where I sort of changed my mind a little
Okay,
bit since
that's
last
fine.
session. Rather than a whole bunch of different items like everyone else is getting, I want to have a conversation with her about how to craft a very specific, powerful, magical item. And that'll happen when we have some one-on-one time, because this will take a while.
Yeah. It definitely will, and especially because she's been so steeped in alchemy, she'll have to sort of dig up the ancient texts about making magical items. But you can wait until you have a moment with her, and not everyone's crowded in her common area eating bean and bacon soup.
Good soup.
So meeting and greeting for a little while longer, telling tales of what you've experienced on the road. You kind of get a better idea of, at the very least, Kieran, you maybe get a better idea of like what Amina and Sludig have sort of experienced in the past couple days. But eventually Dieter, in conversations, you're eating some bean and bacon soup, will kind of look over at you, Kieran. Bean, bacon, broth, soup dripping through his beard. Says, so, what you been up to for past few months, couple years?
Serving my time in the commitment that I set forth to do so in, and earning a honorable discharge at the end of my service.
That sounds nice.
Could have been nicer. What about you? You must have had something important or exciting to do to leave so suddenly.
Oh, well, I've mostly been here in Driftchapel, kind of a drifter for a bit. I kind of made some friends within the shelterless people here in the town, or squatters here in the town. And once they started going missing, I went to investigating and found people, these weird fish folk, were kidnapping them, and people wearing robes and cutting themselves and casting dark magic. After shooting a couple of them, followed some of them out to a pond a bit north of here, and that's where I met Sudik and Amina. And now we're here trying to keep this town from getting worse, I guess.
Rousing.
And you see that Dieter was like, yeah, I've been doing good. And then just in one word, that confidence slashed in half, just dead on her.
Shoulders slumped.
What is he drinking with lunch?
Oh, probably whatever flask he got a hold of.
I'm just eyeball it for now. I can't do anything.
But once lunch passes, everyone gets washed up mid-afternoon. Rain's starting to come down a little bit heavier. Do you intend to go ahead and do some prying around the town today, or do you want to get like a night's sleep first and tackle it in the morning, or do you just want to kind of walk around and see what's up in the town?
Let's do a patrol, a once over, as a little group. Let's just walk around, see.
I support as a group patrol.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if we were splitting up, I'm gonna stay here.
Yeah. But basically, just like show Kieran the town, because Kieran's not seen the town.
Nice. Okay. So you kind of group up, and what would normally be a nice walk on the town for most people, and it's like the purge for you guys. You have all your weapons and stuff equipped to you, getting ready. Zap zap.
Keep the coat drawn tight over my guns.
Once you get geared up, Kieran, you'll make an intimidation check.
Ooh,
I know.
not what I was expecting.
Keep you on your toes.
4.
Dieter looks up. I think I'll be too recognizable if I start walking around the town, so I'll stay back here and keep Agnes in the shop safe.
Yes, of course. And you'll still be here when we get back, right?
Yep, of course, of course.
Turn cold shoulder.
I was trying to see how. But especially if Kieran was intimidating enough, Dieter would have been like, I'm going to come with you and show you
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I have a strong shoulder. But you all step out into the mid-afternoon rain and grayness of Driftchapel and go on a walkabout. I don't know about you guys. I need to toilet cat.
Same.
You get a refill? Perfect. So we'll take a quick few minute break to get refills and toilet cat, and we'll be right back. So toilet cat's in the chat. Fun. We're back. So you guys are going on a walkabout, which you haven't really done since you. I don't even think since you've been here you've done a walkabout. Maybe during your downtime you did a walkabout.
I did one by myself, and then I almost
You almost
got my butt
God.
kicked. Yeah.
This will definitely be sort of snapshot-esque over the course of maybe an hour or so. Especially now, you're sort of doing it with a different intention. So, you're not walking, the week that Amina spent crafting things, it's not just, the walk from the inn to the lab to make stuff. Or for Sludig, it's not just the walk from the inn to the boat where you fight people. Like, it was a deliberate walkabout to sort of take in the sights and learn some things. So first what I'm going to do is have the three of you make a perception check for me.
23.
Oh, I thought you were just saying 7. I was like, true.
Oh, no, 16 plus 7.
17.
15.
Nice. Okay. As our people at home can see, and I think I sent it a million years ago in our Discord channel. It might be in the Google Drive, the map of Driftchapel. Do any of you need me to send that again? Real quick.
Wouldn't hurt.
All right, Bradley. Let me call you out in front of everyone. Actually, you might. Oh no, it's not in the art refs. You know what? Okay, I'll concede.
Pretty sure it was in the group
the
chat we
drive.
had before.
Yeah, I think it was a million years ago. I think is the correct.
It is in the drive. Of course, it's in the drive. Hang on, I think I have it.
I put everything in the drive. Or I tried to. Handouts? No. Maps and tokens? No. Supplemental art? No. Thumbnails? No. Oh, I know where it's at. Man,
I
as
found
much
it.
as I... Great. As I think my hard drive is organized, it's really not.
I need
anyone's
to
hard
go
drive
through and
organized?
do mine. It's bad.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm also putting in the art refs, just in case, for later. If you're looking at the Driftchapel map, you are at the far north side of the town. So you have the rest of the town ahead of you. Each of the 4 fingers of the town, each sort of peninsula-esque area, the waterways and bridges connecting all of them. It's a bit of a maze as you walk through it. Immediately as you leave the Ordist lab, there's really only one path. You see that Agnes purposefully took a place at the edge of town so as not to arouse suspicion, not to be in the public eye as much. And so there's only sort of the one worn path leading to the main road along the waterway, which is where also Kieran and Sludig saw blood along the edges leading down into the water, where people supposedly had been dragged and pulled down. But with your perception checks, as you leave Agnes's shop, you notice that there's sort of a off the beaten path that branches away from the front of her shop that leads into sort of the woods that are around her shop, the trees that sort of winds and wends away. And from your previous knowledge of walking the town, you see that there's a place on the map called the Profane Chapel. And it sort of got this colloquial name because of it's a chapel of an old god that has completely fallen apart, completely in shambles. And it sort of got this, sort of folklore myth about it. But from what you can tell, this sort of broken, semi-worn path away from Agnes's shop almost leads in that direction to the old chapel.
Two of you have interacted with Miss Agnes more than I. You to know of a particular reason she may have a trail to and from this chapel?
Honestly, most of the time when I've been around Agnes has been with Amina.
I can tell you she is here to keep an eye on the town for whatever reason the Ordisterium sent her here for. And for what it's worth, compared to the rest of this Armageddon that we're around, she's one of the few good souls here.
Well,
I
if
can't help but
she's
be
here-
intrigued by this.
If she's
So I
here to
can't-
study something, maybe what she's studying is at the chapel.
Could be worth a quick once-over.
It's quite possible.
Okay.
I'll take off in that direction.
So, gray overcast gets a little darker as you sort of delve into some of these trees. They're not the most luscious of trees, as you can imagine. Many of them dead and snapped and falling. The ones that still retain leaves are casting this darker shade over the path in front of you. And even though the path is walked, there's still all these roots and dead leaves and wet leaves that are crunched on the ground, making it a little bit harder to walk, or at least not as comfortable as the main road. But at this side of town, it's less destroyed building, or at least abandoned buildings, and more just spooky trees. And as eventually the trees start to give way to the plot of land that the chapel sits on, you can now see the ocean a little bit out in front of you. It's gray, it's frothy, and it looks a little bit unforgiving, a lot of the waves crashing against the edge of the town. And the chapel itself is built on the very edge of this sort of cliff face that gives way to the ocean. There is a tall iron fence that wraps around the chapel itself to, protect it from the edge of the cliff. But still, you imagine one bad landslide and it's gone. There are a few houses at the edges of the property, but as most of them in Driftchapel, there are no lights. There's no movement around or within them. And there are a few little land bridges and other things that branch off from this area. There's a little rocky ramp that leads down to the water where small boats will dock, and the path that leads back into town along some of the other houses. The chapel itself, as you expect, is rough and tumble and is in ruins. You can see all varieties of holes in the ceiling. The bell tower looks like it's going to collapse at any minute. The bricks have fallen, revealing the structures within. And the wrought iron fence that wraps around is doing nothing but keeping in overgrown bushes and grass. There's the cemetery and graveyard, or the graveyard itself is built elsewhere in town. Because this is more of a chapel devoted to a deity and not like a traditional church kind of thing. But you can see that the path that connects to the main road, more well-worn than the path you've been walking on, it sort of takes over and leads up to through the open archway of the gate and leads up to the front door. So it looks a little bit more well-traveled than the one you're on, which is unlikely for an abandoned chapel. As far as movement and lights inside, you don't see any. It all seems dark and quiet.
Now, I can't help but have a slight moment of apprehension about this. Maybe it's not that she was taking a path to the chapel, but that something from the chapel has been making a path towards her. Not suggesting that they've been doing business with her, of course, but that may be spying upon her.
Can I look around to see if there's any signs of like wildlife making this path, or if there's like a difference maybe in the footprints, whether it's people? Because I assume, like most things, it's soggy.
That's the standard. Just it's soggy. Everything is soggy.
It's the
Here's a
one
loaf of
adjective
bread. It's dripping wet.
Damp.
the one adjective we use to describe Driftchapel.
Soggy. Moist. Sodden. Just at a cursory glance, if you will make a survival check or a nature check, I assume survival. But...
I think Sludig is significantly better at survival. Yes. Though proficient in both, and that shocked me for a moment because I haven't seen his character sheet in a while. I got a 21.
As far as wildlife, you don't really see any, and you don't think that's necessarily a cause of it being in an urban area, but just a troubled area. No squirrels, no birds, things like that. But as far as the path goes, looking at any of the prints that may be left in the mud, you try to find some dry areas beneath some of the trees where the rain hasn't quite hit yet. And really not too much to go off of. There are a few, miscellaneous boot prints off to the side. But none that are very suggestive in any way. But as far as survival in nature goes, the yard of the profane chapel is quite overgrown, except the path leading up to the front door. And you start to look at it a little bit closer, and even just from like keeping a distance and kind of glancing at it, it hasn't been cut that way. It's growing that way. The grass and the bushes aren't just growing out, they're sort of curving away from the path a little bit. Very unnaturally.
And like no ominously large footprints either. You said nothing fancy like that. But
Honestly, there's a Tarrasque footprint in the path, but that's
no, no, I meant
is
the
the
dude in the suit of
the
in
suit.
the diving suit.
You do not see diving suits, so no, you do not.
Tarask. God, Sludig's gonna walk in that water and just hold his breath until he's drinking.
Take me,
sea.
Katsu. I'm done.
Aiming at the right idea.
I get it now.
Oof.
Oh God. But yeah, nothing
Joke
that
like
suggests
Drew.
a diving
Ding, ding,
suit.
ding, shame.
What?
Oh, Sludig killing himself. Shouldn't joke like that. Ding, 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 shame.
Ding, ding, ding.
So you said, like, approaching the chapel, we don't see any overt signs of activity on the inside.
Correct. It looks dark, just as you'd expect for an abandoned chapel.
Based on conversations with Dieter, it seems this town has a high population, or at least it used to have a high population of homeless individuals, yes? Is it at all possible that we may be stumbling upon a sheltering place for people like that?
A good theory, but if that were the case, I would think there would be more signs of population, like, refuse, trash, like
And that-
something that would show a sign of a person living here, and I don't think we see that.
I was just wondering if I should knock before going to the door.
Well, in
Think a
case it is
good
something like
consensus would
that,
help.
we may want to announce ourselves, but I think if it was going to be a bunch of refugees or homeless people living here, we would see some sort of fire or something. Especially with there being no roof to this place.
Sounds logic. Well, then let's carry forth. I'll walk up to the door, if there is a door.
You walk. There is a door. Um, it's worn. But make an investigation check for me.
Can I help him?
If you want
What
to.
do your eyes see?
I pull out my drift globe to give extra light. Though I think we're still here at midday, correct?
Yeah. So
Ah.
yeah.
Used to being out
Night.
here at night.
It's been patched. There's a couple areas where the wood is a little bit different and replaced with some other wood, some newer wood. Yep.
As I like walk up to it, I'll like wipe my hand across parts where it's been patched. Interesting. And noticing that, I will knock on the door.
Grab a little knock up there and knock. There's no response and no movement and no sounds.
Well, we've done the polite thing. And I try and open the door.
Go to open it, and it's locked.
Interesting.
And you look, and there's a lock. But from your experience, Mr. Old Man and somewhat of religious origin, that's a little bit untraditional of locking a chapel in this way. And you start looking a little bit closer at the door, and there has been, in where the wood has been replaced, there's also been essentially a lock installed where the doorknob is, where the door handle is.
Something has inhabited this building after the church. A lock on a door like this, patchwork like this, doesn't fit. It's not right. I'll like reach to a little compartment on my belt, kind of unlatch it and pull out my thieves' tools, and I will go to unlock the door.
Amina,
cool.
I imagine like the moment you say like, oh, it's locked, Amina's already like, twirling some thieves' tools, like getting ready. And then sees this equally as old man pulling out these tools.
She'll just grumble under her breath. That's my gig.
They're taking our turn.
Yeah, men always coming in here and thinking they can do things better.
Oh no!
All these old white
He
men.
doesn't know that you can do that. He's just going.
Oh man, I guess yeah. So I imagined, yeah. So you've not really seen what Kieran can do, Amina and Sludig. And
Actually, now that I think about it, like she doesn't react right. Like she doesn't go for her tools right away, but like she sees him and she's like, "Oh, I see what you're about to do," and she kind of like
oh, she's judging.
looks and like starts judging like how he starts breaking that lock, and then proceed. I'll tell you the rest.
Oh, you're using that model lockpick? Oh, that's so outdated.
Jesus. Yep. So Bradley, if you will make a dexterity, and if you're proficient, and your proficiency bonus with thieves' tools.
I believe I have expertise to
You have expertise. It's almost like
The
you're a
Kavinsky
rogue.
method. Wow.
I did expertise in thieves' tools. So, God, extra math. That's a 27.
Open.
Yeah. He pulls out a thieves' tools and then just whispers in the lock, "Open." Yeah. So it's probably similar to we're all musicians, so we've probably had this experience once in our lives, where you've been trained, you've taken lessons or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I'm a real musician. And then you see someone who has no proper training play your same instrument, and it's like a million times better than you, and you're just like, I guess. I feel like that's kind of the equivalent, is that Kieran busts out these lockpicks, and he sort of does maybe some, like, unconventional, sort of lock-breaking techniques. Or at
It's
least
a little
not from...
noisier.
Yeah.
It's not like rogue sneaky doing this in the dead of night. It's just like picking a lock. You pick a lock, so I'll get in there and be a little noisier about it because I'm not trying to sneak like a rogue typically would.
But he maybe, so he does it in like half the time. It's just a little loud. So, results above finesse. So, it's
Fair.
yeah, you can play loud and fast, but your tone is bad.
Salutic gives a little elbow and a point to Amina.
Then I unlock
It
the door, I'm
opens.
assuming. And
It opens. The 27, it opens.
And then once that happens, Amina just kind of saunters over, looks at the lock, looks at Kieran, and gives him a light, like, friendly light punch in the shoulder, and like, good job, kid.
wow. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't think I've been called a kid since boot camp. Okay. Is this like
Here.
a padlock locked onto the door, or is it like a door lock set into the door?
Door lock set into the door. Very purposeful. It literally looks as though, and with your knowledge of that, wood has been replaced. It looks as though the planks that made up this door, the part where the knob and lock sit, that's new wood. So it almost looks like they ripped apart that part of the door and like reinstalled new wood and a new knob and lock.
Between the path and this lock, whoever's down here, maybe more than your average cultist or just citizen here.
Let's go.
Sam's it.
So you all kind of get whatever geared up you need to. The rain drizzling overhead, the crashing of waves just beyond the other side of this chapel, standing in this yard of thorns and overgrown grass. You step through the door. Actually not yet. As you step through, go ahead, preemptively. Everyone make a perception check for me.
21.
22.
Ooh.
15.
You step through to what would have once been sort of the welcome room, antechamber, whatever it may have been initially for this chapel. To your left, immediately as you enter in, is a brazier filled with ashes. And you see that there are similar ones affixed in two of the other corners in the room. There are windows set into many of the walls that look out into the yard and then the ocean beyond. Fairly normal setup. The chamber exits to your right. The wall to your right has sort of a break in it with an archway that leads into the sort of sanctuary where all the pews and whatever else may be positioned there. And then on the wall ahead of you is the bottom of a staircase that leads up into the bell tower of the chapel. Now, of course, with such high perception rolls, and those of you who you're all adventurers. There's no doubt about it. The braziers having ashes in them. You can tell that they're recent ashes. You can still smell a bit of the char and smoke from these braziers. The other thing that you notice is that there is a strange, large, maybe 15 to 20 foot diameter sort of engraving. You're not sure if it's actually a drawing or an engraving. You see sort of dark circles and lines sort of in the middle of this room. That, from what you can tell, at least from this position, doesn't have any significant shape to it, but there are sort of markings on the floor. And then this old, tattered, gross, stained rug sort of goes through that archway and into the sanctuary beyond. But as far as hearing things, besides the patter of rain on the ceiling or on the roof and a bit of patter of rain on the floor as it comes through the holes in the roof, all is quiet.
I want to go check out that strange pattern on the floor, kind of give it a walk around to see if at any angle it makes any sense.
I know this might be futile, but Drew, make an Arcana check.
Ha! You know, Sludig is just barely above average in intelligence. 16.
With your experience with the Gloam and the cultist, and even you may have even seen it with some of the bog witches, maybe not long enough to necessarily fully make note of it, but it's definitely magical in significance. This is some spot for a ritual. It is a casting of a spell, sort of either the spot used or it's part of the actual spell itself. It is definitely one magical and definitely something used by Gloam casters.
I'm still gonna call Amina over. Amina, this is something more along the lines for you to see. If you look at it from this angle, I don't exactly know what it means, but isn't that a symbol used in Gloam rituals?
Am I able to
Make an
read
Arcana
this?
check with advantage.
Hey.
So roll twice, take the higher result.
While she takes a moment to look at it, Kieran's gonna position up behind them, pull out like a little pad of parchment, and start drawing the symbols.
Yes, Daniel?
Oh, golly. 27.
Fuck yeah.
Looking at some of the symbols used, it's it's like a dialect of a language. You can recognize it, but maybe the way that it's written might be a little hard to decipher. But taking a few minutes to look at each one and look at their configuration as they sort of wrap around the circle, and you start noticing there's like a circle within a circle and all these crossing squares that create this sort of just crazy patterns to it. But once you're able to pick out some of these symbols, jot them down, and really look at them, it's not just sort of an engraving on the floor. This is a conjuration circle that has been chiseled and very expertly carved into the old weathered tiles of this chapel, meant to bring something forth. In the old days of magic, to bring something forth from other dimensions. But since then, that has, that hasn't been a thing for however many years. You've maybe just learned about it, that used to be a thing. And now the only semblance of that is bringing stuff from the Gloam.
That cultist mentioned summoning somebody.
I want to cast Comprehend Languages and know exactly what it says.
Ooh, I will definitely allow that.
Ooh.
As Drew definitely called, this is definitely sort of a fixture for a conjuration spell meant to summon the flesh spawn. I believe it was Sathog, if I recall correctly.
Sathog.
Let me look at these. Yes. Sathog. But with your comprehend languages and rolling super high on the Arcana check, as a few more minutes pass of you looking at this, Kieran, you making sketches of it in your notes, this the spell that is being sort of represented here, or the efforts being represented, it's not just, conjuration spell. Let me write Sathog's name down. Boom, he's here. It's, from what it seems, is that Sathog is a powerful sort of guard, avatar, some representation of the Gloam to some capacity. And this summoning circle, this conjuration circle, is only powerful enough, and not even that, something like this exists, but it literally, it's only capable of doing this, of bringing forth a part of this creature, of Sathog the Flesh Spawn. And to you, even, you're not even sure if the full thing would exist. But this is at least sort of a culmination of that. In other words, this is a conjuration circle to bring forth a part, a section, a piece, a vestige of Sathog the Flesh Spawn.
Huh.
Do we have any way to destroy this?
What's the ground, the floor that it's made of, or carved
Is
into?
it like
made
carved wood?
It's
Or
stone. Like
as
stone slabs and stone bricks into the floor.
of stone bricks?
Yeah.
Amina, you seem a bit more gifted in the forms of alchemical mastery. You've something you perhaps could aid in dispersing some of the mortar between these bricks set up. We could remove some of them, disrupt some of the runes.
I suppose there's a way, yes. I'm not sure
just
if I
gonna
have anything on my person at the moment that could do
Pull
that,
out an
but
old dagger and
Start
like,
chipping away at some the grout and stuff.
yeah.
In the meantime, Sludig, while they were sketching and checking the engravings, you sort of peer through the archway leading to the sanctuary itself, and it's brave to continue calling it a sanctuary. There's hardly any pews left. Most of them are just broken down rubble into piles of essentially driftwood, firewood, into piles off to the side. But two of the things that immediately stand out, as Amina and Kieran sort of get more invested into their work, the stone bricks of the floor have sort of bowed up and created almost this volcano-like silhouette. Beyond that is a stone altar. Not unheard of for a chapel. But around this stone altar, first off, it's like 20 to 25 feet wide. It is massive. Terribly massive. It is decorated with candles all across the top. But along the sides and along the edges, there are these ornamental tentacles and eyes that resemble that idol that you took off of Kamin's person before you buried him.
if the symbol for summoning this strange flesh spawn wasn't enough to say that this was cult property, the altar says everything we need to know.
Right.
But I do want to go to that bulb, though. Is the brick, broken apart, or does it look like it's stretched up?
Like when trees on sidewalks grow
Yeah.
under.
Yeah.
So I think the don't know if there's a better way to answer that question. As you get closer to investigate, take a better look at how the bricks have moved, the sound of the rainwater gives way to a bit louder water. And as you look closer, the bricks have sort of given way as if they've just been moved. Like some force has pushed against them. But whereas the rest of the chapel sits on the rock and dirt of Driftchapel, the rock and dirt beneath this hole has sort of given way. And you can see a tunnel of running water beneath.
Mhm.
I relay this information to everybody as well, saying it seems that the cult's tunnels have made their way to Driftchapel at last.
You say
Oh,
they travel through these to get around the coast?
yes. They have this strange passageway. I pull out the map and show him. This is a little out of date, but it seems they've spread all the way out here now.
I have an idea. How big is the opening for this tunnel?
Maybe it's, big enough for a normal person of human size to just drop down into, but it's big enough for a larger creature, 10 foot by 10 foot creature, like squeeze through. So it's not massive, but it's big enough.
Amina's going to take a moment to look at this tunnel, and she is going to turn to Sludic's direction and be like, "Darling, might you be a dear and make it a little bit harder for those cultists to, I don't know, emerge from that tunnel?" Save with a little blockage and points to the stone slab of the altar.
That's a 20-foot stone slab. I
a big ol'
appreciate
stone
your
slab.
vote of
Your faith.
confidence.
It doesn't have to be that stone in particular, but and she gestures to the whole party here, like, we have the means to stop them.
And as a note, Amina, as you say that and look around, even though this is a ruined chapel, there is a whole lot of missing rubble that you would expect. It's been mostly cleared out except for the wooden things that are being used as, like, fire fuel.
Well, don't you all think that's the logical thing to do? Give them a little bit more of a disadvantage?
How wide of an opening is this tunnel?
5 to 10 feet-ish.
It would take a significant amount of man-hours to fill something like this.
I'm all for making them have to work harder to get here. Maybe we can work up some sort of trap that will spring on the next group that tries to enter.
Even better. Yes.
That I could work with.
And the cogs in Amina's head are turning, and she starts rifling through her things, and she's thinking about something like that.
I got a better idea as far as...
Do we have a crowbar for the...
That's... for the stones, I had two thoughts actually. First one was the crowbar. Second one was I've got the climbing pitons. We've never decided how that word is pronounced. And a hammer. Just fucking bonk and destroy the rocks that are the bricks that the runes are in, or at least like 2 or 3 bricks on each rune so that each one is messed up.
Oh, I have Kamin's adventuring kit. I have a crowbar. I reverently pull out the crowbar.
You hold it in your hands, lay down, kiss it a little bit. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, reliable.
It's just like Sharpie written on poorly Kamin's crowbar.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I have the honor in breaking up this unholy symbol.
By all means, please.
I take the crowbar and I start
Just get to
jamming
work.
into the mortar, trying to split up the bricks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I need to roll if you want me to.
I guess it depends. Are you guys trying to, like, do that and make a quick exit, or are you gonna like still linger and do some more investigating and look around?
I say we linger.
I'm lingering.
I'll say if you linger,
I got
then
nowhere to be.
you won't
I
need
mean,
to try
I'm
a
all
check.
for like completely removing this section of the
Mhm.
floor.
Same.
Like if I'm here getting a half day's work, well, Sathog's gonna have to come from somewhere else.
Or they're gonna have to carve and rew runes in the floor. It's gonna be
Yeah.
at least a good day of work.
And now we know to watch this place, so
Right.
And OSHA violations, they've got to take breaks every few minutes and wear the proper hardware.
yeah. I mean,
you know.
anything over 7 pounds, they have to use equipment to lift.
Exactly.
Oh my god. Okay, so while Sludig does that, what other investigations do you guys want to do here while Sludig does that?
I mean, of course, other like rooms or hallways that were described. Yes.
Just the stairs leading up and into the bell tower.
I would like to look
While
at
y'all
that altar.
investigate, I'm gonna toilet cat. Sorry.
That's fine.
Very good.
And actually, I in the art refs, I had brainstormed some potential outcomes, and of course, you guys do the things I don't expect. But luckily, I had sort of a map somewhat prepared, and then I just had to make a few edits, and boom, map. So I'm going to send you a little map
Yay.
of the chapel in the daytime. The OG was, of course, at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take away some of the candle lights and brazier lights, but
That's a horrifying altar.
right.
Interesting.
But so it is a very simple chapel in mind, what did you guys want to look into?
I would like to look at the altar and pilfer anything that has any remote magical value.
Okay.
I'm gonna set up a trap on the tunnel entrance. I'm gonna pull out my thieves' tools and start tinkering. I've got an idea or two of something.
Okay. First, Daniel, as far as things of magical value, you don't see anything of magical value. It's mostly unlit candles and people's skulls that they've converted into candles and various other bone trinkets that have been left behind, sort of an offering. But you do notice that has somewhat been washed away, but it's definitely stained parts of the altar. Blood that has been spilled over the altar, suggesting that whatever ritual that they are doing or trying to conjure requires a bit of blood. But as far as magical things go, it's actually pretty bare, surprisingly. It looks as though there are some old runes on the floor of the opening, but that almost just looks like runes that were put there to cause the opening and have since just, let to wear away. Not active.
Good to know, though.
Bradley, what kind of trap are you thinking?
Okay. So follow me here.
Oh, God.
Tripwire set up
Sure.
at the base of the tunnel, maybe 5 feet back and into the actual tunnel itself, leading up to it'd have to be, never mind, hang on. Tripwire set up mouth of tunnel, let's say.
Okay.
It's set up maybe 5-6 feet back from that in the tunnel, in a wall or something. I want to take the only thing that I can think would make sense. Go ahead.
So,
It's full of water, isn't
It's
it?
full of water.
Okay,
So
That's,
yeah, so unless you're wanting to you go for a swim, have Sludig dangle you by some rope, get a boat. You could potentially like leave the chapel to go see like where the entrance is and what deal that is. But from what you can tell, all you can really see is just the water passing beneath.
I'll just do like right in front where like if you were to come up out of the tunnel, you'd have to walk and then immediately hit this tripwire. And I want to set up the tripwire. I'm going to take just like canteen or flask of some kind, empty it out, fill it full of some of the black powder that I just bought from Agnes, and then take my my more mundane flintlock pistol, kind of dismantle take the barrel and other parts that I need. Basically, all I need is the triggering mechanism that would trigger the flint. Have that rigged to the tripwire so that when the tripwire is pulled, it pulls the trigger, causes the flint to go off, which would ignite the canteen full of black powder, detonating it. And I'll stack like an extra, like a smaller pieces of rubble on it too to make more shrapnel.
You know, in all of my years of playing D&D, I don't think I've ever had anyone like make a trap for something like that in that degree. Like,
I like your medieval.
I love it. Yeah.
The more I looked into creating Kieran, one of the reasons I wanted to dip into Rogue, for those in stream who may not know, was so that I could get the Thief subclass, use object as bonus action. But I started trying to think more like different ways I could take Rogue instead of just like sneaky, stabby. And I looked at Thieves' Tools specifically, and it says, we always think of Thieves' Tools as unlocking things or disarming traps, but the last line there is "and setting traps." And I was like, that's why I want to be this character. Like, I want to set some traps.
Yeah, some utility.
Fair
enough.
And it
using
like fits into that military background.
Exactly. So, with my expertise in Thieves' Tools, I would like to set up this trap.
So I think to make this just like uber interesting, I'm not going to ask for a roll now. I'll ask for a roll when it matters.
Okay.
Ooh.
So randomly, I'll be like, "Hey, Bradley, make this check."
Asleep in my bed that night.
Bradley.
A whisper in the
roll.
wind says, "Hey, there's an explosion out there."
Right. Yes. And of course, you tell your partner members like, "Hey, don't step here."
Hey, don't stand there. Yeah.
They all have a red ring in their HUD to let you know, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
this area's dangerous. Go around it." So you're doing that. Sludig, you're going to town on the stone bricks in the floor. Amina, if you will also give me a religion check.
Okay.
Okay.
That is with my intelligence. 13.
13. So in the edges of the room, and if you look at the map that I sent you on sort of the northern and southern sides of that hole, there's sort of these statues built into the walls that have been completely decimated. Arms broken off, head cleaved off, plaques scraped away, completely removed whatever god figure this chapel was once devoted to. But, of course, it's still sort of a fixture in this wall. It's something that wasn't necessarily removed is at the feet of whatever statue this was, instead of just sort of like a flat base, you can see that sort of at the back corner, there's some waves carved into the stone and arching up, leading it to be a god of the sea, storms, something of the sort. But otherwise, all traces of this god have been removed from this chapel. But, half an hour to an hour passes of making the trap, getting a lay of the land, and looking at sort of all of the pieces of this chapel. Amina, you find even more evidence of people being here, even down to very small details of where braziers have been lit and ashes and smoke have filled the area, and there's a little bit of soot on areas of the ground. You find even small traces like footprints scattered around this area. So it's definitely an active area despite what it seems like right now. And same thing everywhere. You find little shards of wood from other pews that were once here that have been used for firewood in the meantime. You even find like an old axe that's been set off to the side to cleave some of the wood in half to be used for firewood. There are all these very subtle signs of activity in life around here. Sludig, you wedge out a couple of pieces of loose brick, which let you get some of the pieces of less loose brick wedged free and moved, things broken apart with whatever kind of... I heard a clarinet. Did you hear that too?
Yes.
Yeah,
My
that's good.
Someone got
my
a
partner's
golden
practicing in the
chair.
living room.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah. I should do that.
Same. Aha.
But breaking apart some of the stone, moving it around, breaking it whatever ways you can, scattering the rubble, so it seems a little innocuous almost. You successfully disrupt this conjuring
Oh,
circle.
I'm not trying to hide the fact that I've.
Oh, you're making it very obvious. Okay.
No, I mean, if I have to remove every single brick of this symbol,
You
I'm
will.
gonna take them all. Yeah.
We
Okay.
take it with us, souvenir.
And like, if I need to push myself to like really do it, like, I'll do it.
That way we can reassemble it later when we get bored.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where once you get the first few out, you're just like, okay, then just take this one out. Just gotta get the grout free and then do it. And especially you're strong, so. And then eventually, Kieran, you get your trap laid. You inform your party like, hey, don't step there, or else. And Sludig's like, I'll be fine. I'll just rage and I'll just take half damage. It's okay.
Ain't got no Dan, Lieutenant Legs.
Oh my god.
Wow.
But you guys kind of regroup with the better lay of the land, and effectively the only things left fully like unexplored are just the briars and overgrown yard, and then the bell tower overhead.
Bell tower?
Bell tower.
Bell tower.
Okay, that was easy. I need to toilet cat, so I'm gonna go do that real quick. Does anyone else need to? Show of hands.
Oh, I just did, but
I'm good.
You said I just did and held up a glass. True. I mean,
no.
Alright. But,
I
so-
guess
go ahead.
no, I just said just terrible acting apparently.
All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go toilet cat if you guys want to chat amongst yourselves once you've finished setting all your
Sure.
traps and doing your investigating, or just drink water or whatever else you need to do. So I'll be right back.
Hydrate.
I guess I should have expected this place to be cult related.
Fucking-
Called the
yeah.
Profane Chapel.
I know, right?
It should have just clicked, but I feel as though it just felt too easy for that to be.
Yeah, that's
Really
what
low-hanging
exactly.
fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I kind
this
of want
is-
to. I want to post up here and like wait for them to show up so we can.
Okay, cool.
But-
It's not the only one. I got one more rage to use. Like, I don't know if we're trying to long rest or not.
I think we
That would
should
be
long
cool.
rest though.
Please, let's long rest,
We need to.
please. Like,
We
there
all
are some
need to.
spells I
So
would
I
like
might
to
as
get
well
back.
use that. Yeah. Oh, geez, Kieran can go hard. Use
Oh, yeah.
everything.
I mean, not to mention, there's nothing I have that recharges on a long rest. Everything's short rest.
That's
Oh,
being
RNG
fighters,
special.
like-
There's a reason I picked fighter for my new character.
Fair enough, yeah.
Barbarian's not bad. Rages are on a long rest, so I
Yeah.
don't get to rage all the time. But they're like very thematic,
Mhm.
which is nice.
That's
because
right.
It's a big moment for Sludig to rage in this, whereas Yeo 5th edition. Okay, I can rage 3 times a day. If we're in combat, rage. I still go, might as well rage.
Right. Is there like a downside to raging?
Depending on your path, there can be.
Hmm.
I took the path of the totem warrior, so I don't really have one. But if you're a frenzy barbarian, you kind of take your rage to the next level and go beyond what your body can really handle in terms of the
Okay.
strength you awaken. And so, in doing so, you gain levels of exhaustion, which
Hmm.
in this setting
Would
is
suck.
damning.
Right.
Like, you would get your butt kicked if you're stacking exhaustion levels every time you rage.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
You'd probably just die.
And there's a couple other like smaller effects, like you can't cast spells or concentrate on spells while raging.
Hmm.
So if you're a multi-classed caster or other like feat based or racial based casting, you can do that while you're raging. But
Yeah, a big one for barbarian is a barbear eaten, multi-classing with moon druid. So like you can't rage
Nice.
while concentrating on a spell and then wild shape to really get the goodies
Yeah.
of that. So you got to do one or the other.
Oh, so
Ultimate
many
technique.
so many possibilities for all the classes. Really, like wow.
Oh yeah, dude, it's one of the best parts
Oh,
about 5e.
I love making characters. Got so many of them. So many.
Look at all these
90
characters that I'll never get to play.
And like the thing is, I have this wonderful library of characters. Oh, new campaign, new character. Let's go.
Every time, it's like Kamin died, new character. It's like what are all my pre-made characters looking at me through the glass, like please, I want to play. Nope, new character.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yep,
New character. New character.
this is exciting.
Choose your character.
And like every time a new book comes out, man, like 5 new
Dude.
characters.
Fizzbands.
I don't have it yet. Like
I don't either.
Is it actually out?
Yeah, it came out a couple days ago. The Drake Warden Ranger. I want to play that so bad. And then the
'Cause-
Way of Ascendant Dragon Monk.
Ooh, see, all that stuff sounds really cool. And my parents are like, "Hey, Drew, what do you want for your birthday? We come out to California." And I was like, "Well, I kind of haven't gotten any of the new D&D books." And Brookhurst Hobbies back in not in Huntington Beach. I can't remember the little city near there. But they get all the fancy cover books.
Ooh, fancy
Hmm.
covers.
And I don't know if that's got one, but I would
It
like
does.
it if it does, because it's probably a very, very pretty book.
It does. It's a very nice cover.
And like they sell them for same price as normal print books because they get a special deal. And like, it's nice because like half my collection at this point is the limited edition covers, and they're all beautiful.
Yeah, I got boring old mundane copies.
The inside is the same though.
It is. Aaron buys all the nice fancy cover ones from newer stuff. I really wanted the re-released covers of Xanathars and PHB and DMG that they got released like a year or two ago. But God, they look so good.
Yeah. They're the ones that are like almost
They're
matte
like
to
black,
them.
but with yeah.
Yeah.
They look good. But
Honestly,
there's still.
this
I mean, of course, there's.
edition's book art has been nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's like like I said, I don't own Fizzbands yet, so I haven't seen the art personally, but I've seen pictures and stuff of the art for Fizzbands online. It all looks gorgeous.
Actually, I'm gonna Google both covers.
I'm also excited. I don't remember the date that they pinned on it, but Critical Role is publishing a new Tal'Dorei campaign guide on top of the adventure. Which I'm pretty sure the adventure is officially published through Wizards, but the Tal'Dorei guide is their publishing company. But it's supposedly, from the reports I saw a while ago, has 6 new subclasses that are Matthew Mercer homebrewed, which I'm very excited for because
I mean,
Matt Mercer
Bloodhunter
makes some
was
good shit.
phenomenal.
Bloodhunter's great. The stuff from the original Tal'Dorei guide, like Blood Domain Cleric and Runechild Sorcerer, Wave Cobalt Soul Monk, all of those are awesome.
That looks good. That's the
That
hall
looks good.
cover. Holy
Oh,
cow.
wow.
I need it.
Yeah, I meant to pre-order that and I forgot. And then it came out. I'm like, God, fuck, I have no money.
Oh, I feel you.
That's a vibe.
So, you guys head up to the bell tower, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. As you walk up, it's maybe 3 to 4 stories, so maybe 40 to 50 feet. Not really any space in between. And as you start going up, it's probably been a while since any of you have been to a real church, real chapel. And as you start going up the bell tower, you're like, wait, they gotta ring the bell. And you look, and there is space for a rope to hang, but there's no rope. It's been removed, severed. So you keep climbing your way up. And as you get, maybe 15 to 20 feet from the top, where you see a shape. At this point, there's not a whole lot of light coming in, except from the windows around the bell itself. You see a shape that almost resembles a bell, but not quite. There is something hanging up there, and it's big. But the one thing that catches your attention the most is a bit of strained, whispered mumbling. And something like a sound. Like a scraping sound over and over again. And you can see what the faintest bit of candlelight barely emanating as you're going up the stairs from that sort of opening beyond where the bell would be. So there's clearly someone or something up there.
Hang on. How long does it take? Oh, never mind. I was going to... Quick pep talk for inspiring leader, but that takes 10 minutes. I'm not going to do that.
Like, all right, guys, I know what we're up against. So since the stairs leading up to the bell tower area, it starts out sort of 10 feet of stone going up. But you can see eventually the stone may have given way over time, have collapsed, and been replaced with wood until eventually it ends up being sort of this 5-foot wide, very narrow mixture of stone, bricks, and wood barely climbing up. So who is going to be the leader? Is it the new guy? Okay.
I'm relatively quiet now. I had one night of stealth training.
What's your HP at now?
99. I did a lot of healing.
Okay. Hell of a short rest.
Hell of a short rest. Sensu bean.
Oh, I was gonna say spitting and rubbing dirt into the wounds.
I mean, that's what actually happened, but Sludig had to, do some image training to speed up the healing in his mind with those monk abilities, and it felt like mystic herbs, but it was dirt and spit.
I just imagine the thought of Amina, who went to school almost for alchemy and healing and potion making, and Sludig's over there like.
Hey, I am mixing the arts of barbarian and monk each way, if you ask.
Finds some grass outside, mixes it up, and rubs it into some wounds.
I imagine though when Amina's like, actually that grass has no healing properties, that's not going to help. And the Sludig's like, if you think it, you believe it. It's all in the mind, man.
God, I'm
God.
a 40k orc.
We just shove parts of this spaceship and believe it can fly.
And it does.
And it does. Oh, man. Oh, anyway. So Sludig is in the lead. So Sludig, even without a light source, there's enough light coming in from the few holes in the walls and the roof and then the windows around the bell tower to see. And then as you start to breach that final floor of the bell. So first, imagine with me, top of a bell tower, a thin walkway that sort of creates like a square around the bell itself. That's maybe like 4 to 5 feet wide. So it's tight spaces up here, but just for maintenance on the bell. There's when the walkway ends as it hits the stairs, there's a little railing. There's railing all around the edges. There's windows on each of the sort of cardinal directions. By windows, I mean openings that drop down into the ground 40 to 50 feet below. But there is a single candle that's barely staying lit with a bit of wind and rain from this the weather at the moment. And all varieties of like crates and surfaces, working surfaces with tools scattered around, and everything from what seem to be canvas bags of sawdust, piles of melted wax, what seem to be, entire blocks of wood that have been partially chiseled away, or just driftwood that's been collected from the sea. Lots of building and crafting materials scattered on all these different surfaces and in different containers. First thing you notice is the bell next to you isn't quite a bell. It has been warped. Not sure how, but it has been... It looks as if a giant blacksmith has taken a hammer and tongs to this bell and beaten it down into a shape. It almost resembles an upside-down hanging version of the statue that you claim from Kamin. Tentacles and eyes that have been beaten and carved and engraved into this massive iron bell hanging upside down.
What is it hanging by? Can I see the top of the bell to see if it's like chained up there, roped up there? Like what is, or is there like a mechanism holding the bell in place, or?
What it seems is that, so as you saw, the rope was gone from downstairs, but as you get up a little bit higher, it seems as though they've sort of, to some capacity, whoever they might be, converted this rope mechanism to a chain mechanism that has been sort of tied and locked off and fastened to sort of the roof of this bell tower. So what may have once been rope, or sort of a rope and chain combo, has now just been converted to just sort of the chain embedded into the stonework of the bell tower. But the mumbling, whispering, and scraping has gotten louder. And as you go ahead and all three of you make a stealth check for me.
Woohoo, nat 20 for
Oh,
26.
Math.
Dirty 20.
17.
Whoever's up here doesn't hear your ascent. Which also, probably most to Slewdig this would register. This figure doesn't, or whoever might be up here, doesn't hear your ascent up the stairs. Which means they definitely weren't paying attention to your... of the bricks and stone below. A little odd.
Okay.
And as you make it sort of that top level, he's playing clarinet up in the belt.
Sorry, thin walls here.
Honestly,
That's fine.
that the
He's
idea
preparing.
cracks me up. This cultist playing a barnacle-covered clarinet up in the bell tower. He's like, sorry, the guys don't like me practicing. I gotta find a way.
We've already gotten 3 noise complaints this month.
I will pass the compliments on.
He plays like a
He does sound
cultist.
very good.
Man.
Go on before you break me even more.
So,
Ah.
so my mind kept taking that like an additional step further, and like you play like a cultist also sort of translates, like a synonym for that is like you play like you worship an eldritch being, and that's really not the like that's the way to go with
That's
that
either
compliment.
like you are fantastic or you are terrible. There's
Especially
no
with
in
clarinet, like that's really
I feel as though that's the you've made a deal with the devil sort of deal.
You're
like
good at
you're
clarinet? Ooh.
ungodly good.
the devil is definitely the or excuse me, the clarinet is definitely the devil of a warlock patrons.
Definitely. I think the other day, so all right, this is gonna be a whole tangent. Whenever I went home the other week when we canceled our session for Absolute Driftchapel, I was helping my mom sort of clean out our home. And you know how it is moving from place to place when you're in school. Since my mom hasn't moved, it sort of gave me this luxury of saying like, hey, I can leave these things here.
Right.
I can just leave them here. I don't need them to live in this place. But now, since my mom's work has sort of ramped up and COVID is kind of still influencing her work a bit, they're sort of encouraging her to start working from home. But of course, for her job, that's a whole setup. Like, that's a whole deal. They're on, like, a whole server. She needs her own company laptop. It's a big deal. And for people who have worked at home, working from home isn't just like, just work from home. Like, you need to set some boundaries. You need to separate work life from home life. You need a space to do that stuff. Like, it's not just, oh, I'll just lay in bed on my laptop. That's not a healthy way of doing it. And so, sadly for my mom, I cleaned out my childhood bedroom, my teenage bedroom. And it was a weekend, you know, going through yearbooks, finding all these sentimental things, but it also forced me to bring a bunch of shit back here to Virginia.
Yeah.
Some of that shit being my instruments. So I have unpacked a lot of my instruments and put them on their stands, so that way I'm like, hey, you're there. You're not in a closet. You're right here. And, you know, I've picked up some old instruments and played them a bit. I haven't touched my saxophone because it makes me terribly nervous to do so. But it also kind of made me think, like, community bands are a thing.
Yeah,
And
they
there are
are.
community bands in our area. There's a lot in our area because we're a very, like, compacted region where it's like neighborhoods are 10 minutes from one another. So there's, like, you know, 5 different community bands. And I don't know where I was going with this tangent, but it has sort of forced me to be like, okay, I need to start playing these instruments again. I need to start picking them up. And I remember where I was going with this. Clarinet's a warlock patron. You're talking about, like, instruments and playing them, because Rachel has had some experience playing, like, flute and clarinet and stuff. And Rachel's like, I actually like listening to, like, you know, clarinet, like classical clarinet, jazz, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, you're brave. Like, that's it takes a lot to, like, be good at clarinet and make it so that someone wants to listen to you play. So
I
like,
majored in it and I hate it.
I think the other week, Drew and I, in our home game, our friend John was a clarinet player in high school, and he was a good clarinet player. But our marching band liked to do these photo shoots, and we used to do these action shots of people playing their instruments, and we used to make fun of all the clarinet players so hard because all the action shots are just like,
Oh, God.
Clarinet, I'm sure it's not a trap.
it's not attractive.
Oh,
It never will be.
God. Oh, man.
So now that we've established that Katu is a clarinet player, Sludig, as you break the surface to this top layer of the bell tower that would surround the quote-unquote bell, you see in the opposite corner a silhouette, a shadow cast by the candle that's burning nearby. And as you start to lay eyes a little bit on this figure and start to notice some of the surfaces, the little boxes that have been set up next to this figure, there's all varieties of iterations of that same statue. Bit smaller, all ranging between a couple inches to a foot high, like the one that you have is, but made of carved from wood, made of molded together sawdust, made of clay, made of all varieties of compacted dirt, and whatever materials they could, trying to recreate this statue. And there's a person with their back turned. It's hard to tell who they are, what kind of person they are, but there's a person with their back turned toward you who is clearly carving away. You can see little bits of wood shavings fall to the ground, carving away, presumably making another one of these statues, and mumbling and whispering to themselves.
I'm gonna tug on Sludig's shirt, coat, whatever, to get his attention, and I want to slip him a set of manacles.
So, since we've gotten this far, am I within distance where I could ambush this person?
They have not seen you, and the bell tower up here, because of the turns and everything, it's maybe a full 10 feet between you and them. But that also means you're a monk, and you have gone unnoticed so far. So I'll probably have you, Drew, make one more stealth check to up there. And then, yes, you could definitely ambush them.
17.
They are mumbling to themselves, almost hysterically, as you creep up. And the moment one of the wooden floorboards beneath you kind of creaks, you burst into a full sprint, and if you give me an athletics check with advantage...
Oh.
Yeah, no, this is your jam.
I rolled double sevens. It's still a 20, but I rolled double sevens.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, my God. It's like our home game where I'm like, hey, John, make an attack roll. And he's like, man, I only rolled a 5,
plus
so that's a
3 million.
22, so I guess it's fine. I'm like, what the fuck? So, yes. You, actually, what'd you roll? 20?
Yeah, dirty 20.
Dirty 20? You know what? I'll roll. I'll entertain the notion.
He could.
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna be so embarrassed.
Yeah, after this new guy just placed all of his faith in you.
Yeah, I get manhandled and pushed over the rail by this mad person.
I kind of want to put it into someone else's hands. I'm gonna feel dirty otherwise. First off, let me determine something. Bradley said, "Oh God!" First, it's like making eye contact with the teacher. Bradley, if you will roll a D20 for me. As you can imagine, lower is better.
As I can imagine.
For Sludig in this situation.
Did you roll like a nat 20?
No.
Oh.
What'd you get?
16.
Sludig, you managed to get one manacle clasp around a wrist as this person recoils, yanks the manacle, other side of the manacle from your hand, and you end up in this sort of standoffish situation. The person you're standing in front of, I actually have artwork for our people at home and people who watch the VOD. Like I said, I may have said this off screen, I definitely was not prepared for just about anything for this group, which is pretty normal for these guys. They tend to fuck me up kind of a lot.
It's our goal.
That is your goal. The person before you is tall. Sludig, you're like 6'3", 6'4", right?
Mhm.
He's like 6'5", 6'6". He's a tall person, but probably weighs no more than like 120 pounds. He's kind of a string bean.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
He is this balding figure with a big full beard. Smells of the sea. Has pale skin, as though, as you would see with a cultist, rotten teeth, but at his hip, all varieties of it in replacement of a rope, rope or placement of a belt, rope tied around his hip that carries a few pouches of things. As you can see in the artwork, and I can send it in the thingamabob as well. A old rusty harpoon sitting off to the side, along with all manner of just supplies sitting off to the side. So he stands, an inch or two taller than you. And for the two of you who remained on the stairs, I think it was Amina, oh so long ago. Actually, it may have been Kamin, unfortunately. This tall, lanky silhouette seems familiar to one of you. It may have been Kamin.
I don't recall.
And now I
tall,
feel
lanky silhouette.
silly.
I don't think I encountered anybody like this when I encountered the diving suit.
No.
And that was really the only time I moved
This
around
wasn't
Driftchapel.
like somebody that was looking at or following Kamin when Kamin was going through identity crisis and didn't care about anything, is it?
Oh yeah.
Is this the guy who escaped Birdsong Estate?
Oh, damn
Oh
it.
my God, could it
Son
be?
of a bitch. I found my notes for this scene specifically, and I just have the pronoun they.
Ooh.
So you know what? I'm gonna give you guys a freebie. You both on the stairs see the silhouette of this tall, lanky figure, and I'll say it rings a bell. And something about the voice as it like recoils at Sludig kind of rings familiar, except for maybe Kieran, because you're new here.
Who are you?
But Sludig, there is definitely something familiar about this tall, lanky figure, and specifically about his voice as he starts to say like, "Who are you?" This same figure, this same person, was spotted in the graveyard all so long ago, sobbing and weeping, and occasionally
Over
saying the name
Aveline?
Aveline.
Yes, that would.
It's good Kamin's not here.
I
think
know,
it might have been
right?
Kamin at that. I remember us talking about that a time or two,
Yeah.
but I don't remember who was the witness. But
Oh, I think it was me actually.
I think it was you.
It
but
was
I
me. I
think
know.
it was me.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but either way, you told people, and now you see this tall, lanky figure who seems like a cultist. And once he reels back, who are you? Wait,
Yeah, I don't answer. I just go to like sweep the leg.
Whap, whap, whap.
make another athletics check for me. Just straight athletics this time, no advantage.
Hello.
Daniel, roll a d20 for me. I'm gonna make you guys do my work.
14 plus 13 is 27.
I got a 15.
Damn it. 22. So his string bean bony legs collapse as you hit the leg, you hit the back, and you just see saying, "Wait a second, you are the one," and bam, hits the floor. He immediately starts trying to grab for his harpoon. Lays a hand on
I
it.
want to use my grappler feet to use my second attack, if I can,
to
to
wallop-
restrain him.
Oh, to restrain
him.
Yeah. And that's a second
That's
athletics
another
check, right?
grapple.
Yeah. So make that check. Bradley, make an athletics check for me. Roll a d20.
30.
8.
Oh, it's a 15. So the moment he's reaching, clawing for his harpoon to try and like stab at you, grab that frail, bony wrist of his, smash it to the ground.
So I take the manacled arm and I pull it behind him. Can I manacle his arm to the back of his leg? Like, over
like
him.
like a half hog
Yeah.
tie kind of
Yeah,
thing.
Oh my
like
God.
reverse ankle.
Yes.
Oh, a reverse, so it's
Yeah, so
Oh,
it's
like
God.
right
one
to left
hand
kind of
to-
thing.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's gross.
Cause see, I started thinking like, yeah, right arm to right leg, you still got this whole left side of your body that you could do, but doing the opposite, like even just imagining, I'm like,
That would hurt
oh
so
God, I
bad.
can't like control my body anymore. What is happening?
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Daniel, roll a d20 for me. Drew, make one final athletics check to wrestle him, like fully get those two body parts together and get him.
I got a 13.
22.
He got a dirty
Ooh,
20,
close.
so yep, he is shackled together, right arm to left leg, doing all sorts of crazy spitting and screaming and not really coherent either, just sort of almost inhuman and almost the same gurgling sounds that the deep ones make.
Sludic just says, talk or no pain.
Do the other two come up and sort of
Yeah.
join?
I'm going to stick behind. Watch from a distance for the time being.
I will make my way up and I will grab the rusty harpoon and chuck it down the middle of the area where the bell would hang over. Just like down the stairs so that it's gone.
You see that at this point, saliva is getting caked up into his like kind of patchy, wiry beard, even without because you strong-armed him, so no intimidation check needed. He starts spitting out saliva dripping down into his beard. Says, "My name is Finch, and you can't do anything to me. You can't touch me. You can't touch my soul."
Sludic starts taking out a rope, ties it up to the manacle as good as he can.
I'm gonna lean down towards his face while he gets tied up some more. My friend, I would care to disagree. It would seem that he's touching you quite a lot.
So all the while I'm like trying to get the rope up to attach to the bell.
Like oh god.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I said talk or no pain.
So of the two of you, whoever has the higher intimidation.
You got +2.
I have +3.
So
you go.
Sludig, you scary beast, you, if you would make an intimidation check with
Unless
advantage.
you will allow me to use
Strength.
strength for my intimidation.
I'll allow you to use strength.
Blessed be, that's +9 now.
That should be.
Hey, be careful. I'm technically Katu.
Esper
So
died.
you're the clarinet player.
Oh no. 23.
As he starts getting tied up, Kieran, you lean down, but he seems significantly less preoccupied with you and more spitting at Sludig. Spitting, I sort of mean like verbally.
Yeah.
He says, "You're the beast who killed Aveline. I won't subject to you. You'll kill me first."
Oh, I'll do
beg
much
pardon?
more than kill you. You're going to end up dead. But we're gonna spend quite some time here making sure you tell me everything we need to know about your group. Where you're meeting beyond here would be a good place to start.
I'm just a seer. I have dreams, I carve them out. This is my little workshop. Just a humble craftsman.
What kind of dreams?
I have this. It's a little trinket, a statue, a little toy, something.
I want to like take a moment to look at the other things like that he's carved or put onto the walls up here.
And you see it's all varieties of, like I said, things ranging from a few inches to a foot or so of tentacles and eyes. Little models made of clay and wood. But immediately after he finishes saying that, he starts mumbling to himself, almost like involuntarily. He says, "No, not enough eyes. Too many eyes. Not enough tentacles. Those are the wrong colors. Those are not the right shape. Oh, those are next to each other." And it starts to finessing on the details.
As your mumbling tells you, these dreams, this craft you bring into this world, it is a rot. I'm going to take this craft from you. But before I do that, who keeps you here? Obviously, there are people down below.
Or, no one. It's my choice to be here. It's my craft. It's my duty. Oh, wait, no.
And like Kieran, as you sort of like look and focus on one, he says,
Oh, no, it's wrong number of eyes. Wrong number of eyes. It's too many. It's too many. Oh.
Oh, what's it made of? Whichever
this
one
one's
I'm
just like
looking at.
made of very. It's a little small, made of wood.
Scratch one of the eyes out with a dagger.
Oh, that's almost it. But that the third tentacle here facing the east here. That's a wrong angle. Needs to curve up 3 times, then face the north.
Do any of you... Oh, sorry.
It's made of wood. I can't do that.
Oh, they start over.
And you
Do
can
any
see
of you...
he's just like veins in his neck popping out. All of his skin is very pale and thin. He is a pitiful looking human.
Well, now Drew feels bad. Sludic doesn't for what he's about to do. Do any of you have any need for him?
I think there's more to be gained here from this situation than disposing of this individual so quickly.
I have an idea, since I'm still technically hidden from him. How many times has he mentioned the exact number of eyes that he's trying to carve?
He's mentioned not the exact number. It's more of the sort of inclinations. Not enough. Too many. Wrong placement. And so it's
Nothing that I could gather like a kind of approximate appearance for.
not quite, no.
Okay.
The
Then never mind. This wouldn't be
statue.
feasible.
But a question I have is, did you happen to leave that statue at Agnes's shop, or did you bring it with you?
Oh,
It
no.
was in my stuff. So, I mean, I've got...
I thought we brought it with us.
Yeah.
Don't leave that anywhere. Anyone you leave it with becomes a target.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, we saw that they went after the statue almost as much as they went after Kamin. That is something I would keep on me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A few
Something
moments
you have
pass of this mumbling. When he eventually stops and like looks around, he says, "What? What? No. Wait. No." And it starts to sort of panic a little bit. And then eventually sort of tries to lock eyes with one of you. Says, "It's here. It's in the." Thank you for stopping by, Matt. I'm gonna weep. Woo! My first DM that I ever watched. Oh, maybe want to do. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And yes, they definitely need all the luck. One
will need it.
casualty so far. And thank you so much for stopping by. And I, for one, as the DM, love Shadows Over Driftchapel. I don't know if they can say the same.
I love hating it.
Playing through it is phenomenal.
It is a very
Love it.
enjoyable experience.
Has Logan done a great job traumatizing my character Sludig? Yes, and I think that's a part of it.
And the player Drew.
And the player
Oh,
drew.
and this is also the truth.
So, thank you so much for stopping by, man. Oh man, I want to. We got to keep playing. This is a game.
The show must go on.
But he starts looking around and eventually, is trying to gaze around the room, almost like he's making eye contact. And he starts almost like he's looking through you, looking out the windows, and eventually Finch says, "It's here, it's here." And with whatever free hands that he might have, starts grasping at the air, like he's trying to reach. Says it's near.
Can I tell what he's talking about?
Eventually,
Based on the other statues and things made here.
yes, definitely.
So Sludig will step back. This guy is restrained
Mhm.
on the ground, relatively hogtied and immobile, just out of his reach, and pull out the statue. Talk. You might even get to touch it.
Ooh, this is a toughie because I can go either way. Sludig, if you will make an intimidation check for me.
15.
Kind of locks into you a little bit. And, Kieran, as you're standing sort of near him, you see that the eyes, as Finch locks onto Sludig, start to kind of dilate a little bit and shrink down, dilate, shrink. And you can see that there's almost like this battle happening. And then his pupils fully take up, like his irises. And then eventually you blink and then they take over all of the whites of his eyes. And Finch says, "That's not yours. You must give that back."
Clearly the voice you speak with is not yours. You must give that back.
As this is happening, I want to cast See Invisibility because this will also let me see ethereal creatures.
Yes.
Nice.
You cast See Invisibility, and at first what seem as vapors to you almost appear as a full being. This ghostly being squatting next to Finch, kind of holding his head, this simultaneously beautiful but also vague looking woman. She's gorgeous beyond all standards, but almost has no facial features, just a smooth face. She has beautiful radiant hair, but that lacks any kind of color or description, and a beautiful flowing dress with no discernible material or pattern. And she's leaning in Finch's ear and whispering.
I knew that would come back. Okay. Good to know.
And Finch, looking up at Sludig, says, "Leave it in the chapel, and it will be finished. You can have Driftchapel back. It's all done."
I've seen what the wielders of this statue can do. I've seen how it has changed them. I don't think I want to listen to anybody but the person who gave this to me about what I should do with it.
He was of the same blood So shouldn't I suffice?
No.
You can see that Finch's eyes start to flick. He starts to blink a lot. The pupils start to recede back to where they belong. And there's this deep rumbling as the pupils return back to where they were. And Finch starts to mumble to himself again.
Too few eyes, more eyes, and not enough. Oh no, it was 3 tentacles pointing. No, wait, it was 2 this way and this way.
And starts mumbling to himself again, crunching up his eyes. And almost unaware of your presence there.
So, I have a couple of questions. First of which, what in the 7 hells is that? And why do you have it?
This statue was one of the belongings of our companion who we lost down in those tunnels. From
Your
what we
companion of the same blood as whatever these creatures are?
apparently he had something to do, his powers and whatever he was had something to do with Katu.
And you traveled with him?
For as far as I can tell, he didn't seem as swayed like some of these other people do. I couldn't see any sort of worship towards Katu in him. His powers were strange. Even the bog witches were wary of them. But from what I saw of him, he was not like these cultists, not twisted in the way they are.
Who's Aveline?
A woman, a higher-up member of this cult. She owned, or at least used to live, in the Birdsong estate. We had a run-in with her. Kamin killed her. Speaking of which, I ruffle through. Did we ever actually give you Aveline's pistols?
I think Amina has the pistols.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Never mind. She carried these very ornate pistols. She was deceased, but strangely enough, when we were down in the canals near the swamps, it seemed as though Aveline had been brought back somehow as this strange undead creature.
All right. Final question for now. Why didn't you tell me any of this sooner?
We just met. You saw me kill a cultist and you didn't react aggressively, so I figured I could trust you in some ways, but there is much myself and Amina and our old companion have been through. Sometimes we have to see if you are trustworthy enough to know things. This is important, as you can see.
While I can appreciate some discretion, the matters here tend to be more life and death, apparently. And I asked you at the Ordist shop if there was anything else that we needed to know before we went out. So I'll ask again. Is there anything else that I need to be aware of before I spend another night in Driftchapel?
There is, but we will not discuss it here in front of these prying ears who definitely want to know as much as they can. And trust me, if we go back to the Ordist lab later, I will fill you in. Ask as many questions as you want, and I will be as honest as I can be.
Agreed. Are we done with him?
I have no more need of a madman. Oh, another tabletop. Blessed be
Aw.
the viewership tonight.
Thank you so much for stopping by. Oh, it means the world. Oh, I know I've said this before, but like, Provokers, my first like D&D campaign I ever watched. Matt was like my first DM I watched, so like, it's like, ooh, I'm gonna freaking cry after this.
Ooh wee.
Let's give them a little something spicy since they're here. So if you all are done with him, I have a question for you, Logan.
No,
Uh-oh.
yes.
I want to flavor thaumaturgy a little bit because there's a sequence of things I want to do.
Oh no.
First of all, fellas, are you like 100% like you're done? You're going back down the stairs?
Oh, no. I was going to cause insidious levels of pain to this person.
I was gonna shoot him in the head.
Oh, no.
Quick and clean.
Yeah.
No, because like he's still tied up to the.
Yeah,
mechanism
he's
holding the bell
still
up in the
very
ceiling.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, he was gonna suffer for a moment. Sludic's
Okay.
done being nice to the cult.
All right. So you got the physical torture down. Let's add some mental to it. I want to cast thaumaturgy and I want to emulate the appearance of the woman I saw as much as I possibly can.
Oh no. I love the
I'm gonna
clarinet
leave.
backtrack.
I know, so ominous. But yeah, I'm gonna try
The sound
to.
of the devil emanates.
Shout out to all the clarinet players.
I'm gonna try and I'm gonna use part of thaumaturgy to emulate her appearance as much as I can, emulate her voice as much as I can, and sneak my way to her and use the last part of it to say to my fellas, just in case you might want to cover your ears for this. And I get into the position where he can't see me still, but like I lean forward, like I try to do everything that I saw through the sea invisibility and say something along the lines of like, you're done, you're finished, end this madness, or let them end it for you.
And then this railing's made of wood, right?
Yeah.
Sludig kicks him through the railing with like 15 feet of rope for him to fall down before it all just snaps into the manacles.
So, before, or as the thaumaturgy stuff begins to happen, Kieran's gonna leave. Down the steps of the bell tower, out the front
down.
door, and I'll wait outside.
So here is, in my mind's eye, what the scene unfolds to be. As Amina starts to do all this conjuring of magic, of different illusory effects, Kieran, you pick up on it and you start to make your way down the stairs. But then the culmination of it, as Sludig sort of covers his ears and shoves Finch through the railing and off the edge of where the bell would be. Kieran, you're hoofing downstairs, and all of a sudden, Finch dangles by rope and manacles right next to you and snaps where the bell rope would be. Still sort of mumbling, but you can tell that immense pain has definitely afflicted his consciousness. What was that, Bradley?
I shoot him square between the eyes, put him out of his misery.
So Sludig, a moment passes and you hear resonate throughout the bell tower, surrounded by all these faux iterations of this statue, and now the limp body of Finch hanging from rope in the bell tower halfway up. It eventually all falls silent, aside from the patter of rain overhead. You all take a little breath.
I keep going down the stairs.
Keep going down the stairs. I assume eventually you guys will regroup and chat, but for now, as you guys are up in the tower surrounded by all these things and the one candle burning and Kieran steps out into the rain overhead. We'll stop for this session and start next time. Oh, man.
Oh man, this was a spicy session.
I really didn't think it
You
would
know,
be
for
either.
hidden
I didn't
path
either.
behind the Ordist lab, we got a lot of info.
I was expecting like a shortcut to somewhere else,
Yeah.
not this whole arc.
Mhm.
Imagine if you guys had gone there at a different time of
Yeah.
day.
Dude,
Yeah,
the
we show
whole
up at
time-
night. It's the whole cult, the flesh spawn, or 1/4 of him, or whatever is there.
Right.
Drinking the pudge.
the whole time I'm just thinking, if we'd have come here with Kamin, I took the dreaming visage feature. I would have loved to get into his
Oh,
dreams.
man.
Oh, that would have been
The
so
terror.
The terror.
cool. Alas.
Oh
Plus, he would
man,
have helped you torture the
Kieran
shit out of
giving
that guy.
this man a mercy he doesn't deserve.
Kieran doesn't know any better.
Kieran
enough.
doesn't
just-
know any better.
He just sees you mutilating a madman and thinks a little less of you for it.
But the,
That's
yeah,
okay.
that-
He didn't see my village.
He didn't. You're right.
Jesus.
He doesn't know about your village. He doesn't
has
know
a
about your wife.
Lots of stuff coming up that he needs to know about.
Next time, Kieran and Sludig, 20
The
questions.
Lord dump.
All right, tell me what's going on. Oh man, what a session! And I really didn't expect it to really go that deep, but it sure did, as
It's
all
fun.
good sessions do. I shouldn't expect any less from this campaign. It's amazing. And thank you, Tabletop Terrors / Tim, for being here, stopping by, and watching the last couple minutes. You really tuned in at a spectacular
Best
time. And thank you, Matt, for stopping by. I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. This is gonna be one of those nights where I'm gonna be too jazzed after the session to go to bed,
Clip,
and I'm just gonna
clip,
stay up till like
clip.
3 a.m. Like, ugh. So thanks for ruining my sleep schedule, Matt and Tim. That really, thanks a lot, guys. But I truly cannot fathom how much that means to me. And you've got a new Kickstarter out, so if you need someone to do an actual play of that adventure kit, just let me know, and I will gladly do a sponsored actual play. But yes, thank you for stopping by. But besides that, all the normal stuff. Check out my Patreon, patreon.com/neversaydice. Oh, and that's another thing. The Never Say Dice screen name, my online pseudonym, I got that from Matt, because his is A Fistful of Dice, which he got
that's
from is a pun for the movie A Fistful of Dollars, one of his favorite movies. Mine is The Goonies, one of my favorite movies. Goonies never say die, ergo, never say dice. It all comes back around, so thank you, Matt Click, for basically my entire existence now as an online D&D creator. So check out my Patreon, patreon.com/neversaydice. Check me out on Twitch, twitch.com/neversaydice. Check me out on DM's Guild. It's not Never Say Dice, unfortunately, because they have some weird URL stuff, but you can find me on there at Logan Smith. If you Google search my name, some of my supplements should come up. And I've got a cool Halloween supplement called The Song and Spirits Inn, which is basically a haunted inn scenario that you can drop into most of your campaigns for Halloween. Lots of fun, and they might get, a haunted violin and have a ghost companion for a while. Or as my players did, they burned the violin and got rid of the ghost.
From a
Lost
player
clarinet.
standpoint, I gotta say it was a lot of fun to play.
It should be a clarinet. Now I gotta go edit the set. I gotta go edit the adventure. Quickly edit the adventure for Halloween. The
Gotta
worst.
offer refunds and recalls for all the adventures that went out.
Or I can release it as a supplement, like a good company does, some DLC, and charge
Yeah.
the
Ooh,
same
charge an
price
extra
for the
dollar.
99 cents for a 1-word edit.
change it to clarinet. Oh man, we're terrible.
Control F, violin, delete, clarinet.
Oh, jeez. But all of that good stuff, and of course on social media, you can find me doing all sorts of stupid stuff, and also posting some free stuff for my Patreon. So always like and do all that stuff. Turn on notifications on Twitch and on YouTube, and posting some more clips. And social media, we're posting clips from my D&D campaigns and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to my lovely players, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks. Provided that's not a holiday. I'm terrible at keeping up that far in advance.
November 12th. We should be fine.
We should be
Isn't me.
fine.
I'm going camping.
True. Maybe
It was supposed to happen in October, but like
I'm free
things
next
got
Friday.
moved around a couple times.
Maybe we can do like a cute little one shot or something.
I'm sorry.
Kieran and Amina beach
The
episode.
beach episode?
Let's go to the
Nice.
That is
Beach,
not a
beach,
beach I
that's
want
a
to
good
go
one.
to.
It's the lovely rocky beach.
You step
of,
into the
like,
beach and you're possessed and
Northern
you're part of a
Washington.
cult now. We'll figure
I feel
something
as though
out.
that was the Kamin one shot.
Yeah, it kind of was.
It definitely
That
was.
was the closest thing I got to a beach episode.
Either way, I think I would like to do something in 2 weeks. Maybe a Call of Cthulhu thing. We can do something a little different, but similar.
Drawer Wars.
Drawer.
I would hate no.
Drew.
Yeah, we
Fine.
I have
You're
to
right.
represent the Spoon Legion.
You're
That's
right.
true. Either way, I would like to do something in 2 weeks, so you can figure that out by turning on notifications on Twitch, but you could definitely probably see me in 2 weeks at the same rough time at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, same rough place on Twitch. And I guess the way that we end things after that one time, Bradley, what's the weather like in Driftchapel?
See, it's a toughie this time. I'm gonna say foggy. Very, very foggy. Like hard to find relationships. Very foggy right now.
Ooh, that had some sting to it. So thank you, everyone.
Like this whole session.
this whole session. And we'll see you very soon.